All right. You know what? I'm not going to wait for the countdown. I see I got modern day debate out there waiting, and I don't want to keep him waiting because, reasons. But anyways, welcome James from modern day debate out there. Welcome John, who's in here with StreamYards, making sure that my audio quality is okay, even though I'm having computer issues. I'm having camera issues. I'm having mic issues. I've resolved it as much as possible. Windows still wants to do updates that I don't want done because when they do the updates, things start breaking. And so my computer system kind of went to crap with some updates. So I've been fixing it. I got the mic working again. Camera, work in progress. Not that I really care, but I think the mic is okay. So John, can you hear me okay?
Yep, absolutely. Am I audible?
You are audible. Yes, I can hear you just fine. So hopefully it'll stay that way. I have to keep kicking up my volume because the automatic gain control, but it sounds like a personal problem to me. So anyways, so let's kind of dive into this. So a lot of stuff been going on. I haven't really been able to stream much. Hi Slam, hi Dan's legs. Obviously people know there's a lot of medical reasons and other things that have been going on. I'm not going to get into the personal stuff, but my health is better. I'm feeling a lot better. My voice is better. I can actually talk. So still stuff I got to take care of, but all in all, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. At least all things considered, considering that, I had to take certain steps to make my health in a position where I wasn't going to die or something, because my people don't know, my brother passed away when he was 50 for the exact same thing that I had. So I wanted to take it very seriously. And so I did, and come to find out, there's some issues, but be that as may, let's talk about the subject at hand, John. So recently I've been putting a lot of stuff on my Twitter. I've noticed. Have you noticed? Is it subtle?
Yes.
On my Facebook.
Twitter and Facebook is where I follow you. I have to say, your position hasn't actually changed as far as I can tell.
No, actually, it's funny. I just literally, I have not really changed on anything. It's just I recognize that I agree with certain positions that I've always held that now that MAGA holds. So I mean, it's like, I don't want to take the label, but I had no choice because of the amount of deception out there.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, my position is that had I been voting in the United States this time round, had I been an American citizen, I could not have in good conscience voted for the Democrats. So I would have been voting for the Republicans and Trump.
And a lot of people did do that. See, there's two types of people that voted for Trump. And I did a lot of the election coverage, right, over the years with people. Yeah. And I noticed there's really two people that really voted for Trump. One, the people that actually know the truth that he was set up by the Department of Justice. That was absolutely a fact. We know that now. Crossfire Hurricane has put out all the documents. We've known it for a very long time that the Biden administration has literally fabricated multiple things against Trump. That they did realize, or they did know that the Hunter Biden laptop was real. They decided to collude together and prevent the American people from knowing that. They did, in fact, know that it was fake. They did, in fact, know there was no Russian collusion, but they decided to run that narrative anyways. That's not even contestable. And so looking back in hindsight now, you're right. A lot of people voted for Trump because they know that to be the case. And other people voted for Trump because in good conscience, they couldn't voted for Kamala. They couldn't vote for more illegal immigration. That was one of the biggest factors in these elections is sealing off the border. The mandate from the American people was to get the border under control. And Trump is doing that. But at every step of the way, rogue judges that have no empowerment to do what they're doing are trying to stop him. And it's notable. And the media is following along, hook, line, and sinker with all these fake news is what he calls it. And he's right. I've watched the media literally not just sensationalize topics, not just mislead people, but outright fundamentally lie. And that's disconcerting.
Well,
that's absolutely disconcerting.
He is a Maryland man, Steve.
Like the Maryland man thing. That was one of the things that I cannot believe people have been so indoctrinated to believe that this man, now let's think about this. Let's put it on the table. This guy comes across the border illegally, walks across the desert to get here by his own admission. He walked across the desert to get here. He was found loitering with 2 known MS-13 gang leaders, which, by the way, they did not hang out with just anybody in the middle of the night. These are not your ordinary, just, gang bangers. These are one of the most vicious organizations on the planet.
Oh yeah.
They don't hang around with just anybody. They're not even allowed to hang out with anybody who's not an MS-13 gang member or a prospect, right?
Well, the thing that for me, that it seems as though, like, the fact that he's illegal is not in dispute. The fact that
to some people it is. They think he's a resident of Maryland. He's never been a resident of Maryland. He's never had residency.
Based on the report on how it's been reported in the media, I could certainly understand how some people would end up with that opinion, but that just doesn't align with the facts of the case.
Well, because they're lying to people. They're calling him a Maryland man rather than a MS-13 terrorist, or illegal, which he is, and that's how the media is spinning it.
The thing is, like, as far as I can tell, whether he's an MS-13 gang member or not, is kind of, I mean, a reasonable discussion to be had would be, does he deserve to be in a supermax Al-Sadorvian prison?
Yes.
We can have that conversation, but whether he is allowed to be in the United States or not, the answer is no.
Right. Well, and let's look at this way, John. Again, let's look at the evidence. Put all the other things aside. Let's be reasonable, objective people. We have a guy that has come across the desert illegally, a guy that was picked up with 2 known MS-13 leaders with gang tattoos that are MS-13 gang tattoos. He has a sweater, a hoodie that is relating to gang mottos.
Wasn't he in 2019? Wasn't he also arrested in a?
Well, yeah, I'm getting there. So that was what happened in 2019. 2 immigration courts, not just one, but 2 immigration courts determined the evidence was sufficient to determine he was MS-13. 2, an appeals process, appeals court upheld that he was to be deported. We have 2 presidents of nations saying that their counterintelligence, their counterterrorist units have determined that this guy is a terrorist. El Salvador has a file on this guy for terrorism, which is completely independent of us. Homeland Security has designated him a terrorist. And yet you have people screaming out there, he's not MS-13. Then what the hell do you think is going to be evidence that he's MS-13, except for all the facts that he's MS-13 from going back 10 years when the Prince George Police Department determined he was MS-13. We have a sheriff, a deputy sheriff, a 3-star deputy sheriff saying he's 10,000% sure he's MS-13. But we have people out there going, no evidence. It's just mind-boggling, because that's Trump derangement syndrome right there, John. That's TDS.
The only thing out of all of that, the only thing that I would question, and it is the only thing, and it is the file that El Salvador say that they have, because he did leave El Salvador when he was.
Yeah, they have a file on the guy. That's not coincidental.
But what I'm saying is, like, I do wonder how it, like, if he came to the UK when he was not the UK, sorry, to the US when he was like 15
16
or something.
Yeah.
So was he 16? Yeah, I'm obviously I know MS-13 like to take in young boys and essentially indoctrinate them into being gang members.
Correct.
So I'm not saying that there isn't going to be a file on him, but if he's been in the US the whole time, I just wonder how extensive that information could be from El Salvador. Not that you need it; it's redundant.
No, I
There's
get
plenty of other evidence.
Right, and it's funny when Homeland Security designates somebody a terrorist, most people wouldn't bat an eye. They wouldn't care. But for some reason, they've taken a special interest in this case, which is they're getting so much misinformation. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the burden of proof that they're asking for is he or is he not MS-13? Right. When it also doesn't actually matter. Like, in order to deport him,
That's true. Yeah, his deportability was not based upon his gang status. His deportability was based upon the fact he was here illegally, right? And he violated federal law. He was supposed to himself to deport. He ended up getting a work visa, which doesn't give you residency. So the fact remains he never had residency in Maryland. He was never a Maryland man. He was a gang member that came over here and started doing human trafficking. He was pulled over in 2022 for what? Human trafficking. And so people can believe what they want about him, but as you said, he was deportable. And the news is absolutely 100% lying about it. They're saying that the Supreme Court ruled that they had to effectuate getting him back. No, that's not what the Supreme Court ruled at all. Matter of fact, anybody knows anything about the Constitution, which I've read numerous times, as people may know, you have to swear an oath to the Constitution when you join the military. It kind of helps to know what's in it. And if you think that SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, has any power to order a foreign national back to America, the one place that they cannot be because they're illegal, you don't understand the Constitution or due process. And so when I hear people screaming due process, they don't know what the hell they're talking about, because what they're asking for is impossible, legally speaking.
Yeah.
Why would you want a terrorist to be back in the States? SCOTUS did not rule this. And what they did rule, people don't understand because they were so mushy about it. They said that the executive department had to facilitate. Well, facilitate is a very specific term in immigration law. And if you're going to be ordering people to do something with legalese, then you have to go by that type of speech.
Well,
and
my understanding
what?
legalese is if facilitate means to either not obstruct or to attempt to make easier.
Correct. That's all that matters. Yeah, exactly. Facilitate means to prohibit, to remove any road barriers for him returning. Right. So if he ever did get out of prison, if El Salvador said, look, we're going to let you go and do what you want, because they did that before with Venezuelan prisoners, other countries have. They said, hey, we're going to close our prisons. We're going to send you all out there. And most of them came over here. That's why we have so many of these Venezuelans that are here legally. But if he can make it back to border, then he'll be allowed entry to the port. But what will happen at that point? He'll be immediately arrested and immediately redeported, because that's the law. There's no reality where he's coming back to have any kind of court case for anything. There's just nothing there. He's already had his court cases. It's over for him as far as that. And I don't understand where these people getting this idea from due process, because they don't even know the difference between procedural due process and substantive due process.
Well,
what happened was that, go ahead.
I think they're expecting some kind of adjudication, like a jury
That's already
trial.
been done, though. There's nothing to be adjudicated. It's a civil matter. It's an immigration. It's not. This is what they don't understand. He doesn't get another trial. There's no legal statute for him to get any other trial. There's nothing. But here's the thing, John. They are under the impression that they can get him back. That is delusional. He's not coming back. I'm telling you right now, there's no way he can come back. It's illegal. It's a federal violation for him to come back. So what these senators going down there and these congressmen going down there to try to get him to come back, it's a fool's errand. It's like Don Quixote. It's ridiculous.
Obviously, there's no legal mechanism to bring him back, from what I understand. None. In terms of, like, there's no sort of legal infrastructure, or there's no there's no, you can't repatriate a person who wasn't a patriot in the first place.
Correct. And matter of fact, if you come into the country illegally, almost always you have to exit the country and come back, right? And people say, well, he applied for asylum. That's true, but he applied for asylum too late. He had to apply for asylum within 1 year of legally entering the country. He did not. He was deportable. And I asked people if they know what the paperwork error even was. Most of them don't even know. So the people listening, let me tell you what the paperwork error is, because the news is lying to you. People are lying to you about this. I'm telling you. Go look for yourself. Don't have to believe me. Go look. The paperwork error was simple. The executive branch has control over immigration. Okay, so the immigration courts and all that, immigration departments all fall under the executive branch. The paperwork error was that he was on a standby list to be deported. When he was to be deported on the standby list, he got moved up to the manifest to be deported on a Pacific flight, where it didn't have it flagged that he had a stay from El Salvador. So they didn't know to remove the stay, which they would have done. It would have been easy to do so, trivial, because it's part of the executive branch, right? They can remove their own stays. It's right there in termination of stays, Section 8, Article 8 of how to do this. It's not that hard.
Yeah, and
but what happened was,
is it not the case that the reason for the stay in the first place was because he had made the claim that he was at risk from other gang members if he went back to El Salvador?
Correct. A rival gang, right? How do you have a rival gang if you're not in a gang? Yeah. And that rival gang was called the Barrio 18, who supposedly loved his mom's pupusas so much that they extorted her, and that threatened to kill him if they didn't give him a cut of the action for his mom pupusas. I'm not making this up. That's the story. But the Barrio 18 gang no longer exists down there, so the threat is already gone. There's no reason. There's no threat of torture that he was stayed as for under the the Torture Act. So what happened was he said to the judge, "Hey, look, you can deport me. That's fine, but don't send me back to El Salvador," because he knew he would be going to CCOT, or he'd be going to prison at least at the time. It wasn't CCOT, but he knew that he didn't want to go back to El Salvador, right? And so the judge said, "Yeah, we'll give you a stay from that particular location." But here's the thing again. Had they known for the paperwork error and had they removed the stay, the end result would have been exactly the same thing. He would have been deported to El Salvador and he would have been a CCOT. It would have changed nothing. So this performative outrage about due process is complete bullshit. He got his due process in the early courts. They determined he was MS-13, that he was to be removed from the States. And so I don't want to hear anything about due process, because it's a procedural due process that was nobody's fault, that would have been nobody's not a shred of difference had they actually said, oh yeah, he's got to stay from here, let's remove it and then ship him. So they're not outraged about due process. They're outraged that they're trying to say that Trump is in the middle of the night going to be deporting American citizens, which is one of the most bullshit things I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that I don't get. The notion that this is some kind of slippery slope to having American citizens deported,
and that's a good argument. That's what it is. It's slippery slope.
Mental.
It's beyond slippery. And it's funny because we have the most transparent presidency in history. The access is unreal, and you can see that the White House loves Trump. They love him. The vice president, I mean, they're all working together in order to do what the American people voted in him to do, which was to secure the border. Hate the guy, love the guy, it doesn't matter. His mandate was to secure the border. And what's happened to the border crossings? They've gone down to next to nothing. And people are bitching about that. Yeah. So the Democrats are wanting people
because all of the incentives have been removed.
So why do the Democrats want illegal immigration? Why are they putting all their eggs in one basket where they're going to literally go on? I'm not even joking here. Literally go down to shake hands and have margaritas with a terrorist. What is the optics here to middle America? And again, hate the guy, like the guy, doesn't matter. But what's the optics, do you think, for middle America when they see that?
Well, I mean, when I first saw them, I thought they were fake. I thought they were like,
they're Photoshop, fake. Right? You're surreal.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing. I swear to God, I'm not joking. The one him shaking Garcia's hand, I thought it was Photoshop too at first or something. I was like, is this real? Is this for real? And by the way, I'm not ignoring the comments. I'll get you guys. I promise. So.
Yeah. In terms of the Attila, the ones just asked. How the thing that they're undecided on is whether they actually are MS-13 tattoos.
Well, they are.
Right. I mean, well, the
marijuana leaf for M, smiley face for S, cross for 1, and skull is the 3 holes in it, and it's for cranio for the 3rd level of the alphabet. It's MS-13.
Yeah, and I think the police. What's going on here? I've just lost my screen for some reason. Oh, there we go. The police in the States, I think they seem satisfied that they are. But again, to be honest, it's sort of irrelevant. I mean, how many times do you have to be arrested with other MS-13 gang members?
Right. Yeah. I mean, but I mean, he was found with in 2022. He was found with a known terrorist in his car. And one of the other ones was on the terrorist watch list. Not him, but another one was. Come on, this is ridiculous.
One of the things I said on Facebook.
Who makes that decision that he's a terrorist? Not individual people off social media. It's the Homeland Security. And I literally had somebody the other day said, well, he could live next to me. You're lying through your teeth. If you think this guy even has the potential to be MS-13, you would not want him. Nobody in their right mind would want somebody who's been charged by Homeland Security as a terrorist to live next to them. That's insanity. That's Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah.
Well,
it's absolutely mind-blowing.
I was pushing back with somebody on Facebook about it, and I think one of the comments I said, look, he's been hanging around with his MS-13 mates so much, I'm surprised he had the time or energy to beat his wife. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, 2 times she put in for physical violence. I mean, and then she's changing her story. It's like, okay, which story is the right one? She's doing all this for publicity. Because again, this guy had due process. I'm sorry. And if you read Sotomayor's opinion, that is her opinion. But Sotomayor's the most left-leaning liberal judge on the entire SCOTUS. Right? I mean, again, if we're talking about a procedural error, then sure. But what was the remedy for it? They did not have a judicial remedy for it other than, okay, going forward, you have to give notice and you have to have an opportunity to be heard. Okay, fine. Whatever. That's just whatever. That we can. Yeah. The problem with that is you can't do that for millions of fucking people that have illegally came across the border in a way that's efficient. So they have to figure out a way to kind of work that in. But SCOTUS never.
15 million people in the last 10 years or something.
Well, hang on a second. But SCOTUS never argued his return. And facilitate does not mean to even try to get back. Here's what's fundamental, what people don't understand. The Article 3 powers of the Constitution do not give, not even the Supreme Court, the power to step on Article 2, Section 2, core plenary executive branch powers of diplomacy. They cannot do it. They cannot tell the president to do anything when it comes to foreign relationships or diplomacy, which this is. This is both diplomacy and foreign policy. They have no power to do that. None. That's right there in the Constitution. And the the Justice Alito and the other Supreme Court justices on the right recognize this. They're saying, look, we can't do this. This is not even our power. But they want to say they can facilitate. Okay, well, that's fine, because facilitate means to not have any barriers. But they kicked it back to the lower court judge, the district judge, Judge Nixix, and said, hey, what the hell you mean by effectuate? We can't order a president to effectuate somebody from another country when there's not even a citizen of ours. If we could do that, then why do we do it with hostages? Why can't the president effectuate a return of the hostages that were in Gaza or in every other place? Because it makes no sense.
I thought the El Salvador president's response was pretty good. It's like, so he basically just said to the media, it's like, I can't smuggle one of my citizens illegally into the United States. You know?
Right. He's exactly right. I mean, he thought the whole thing preposterous, because it is preposterous. It's anybody who's read the Constitution. This is what I'm saying. Anybody who's read the Constitution and has served in the military, should have read it because you signed an oath to it, should know that SCOTUS cannot order his return. SCOTUS cannot even order the president to do anything diplomatically, which is what they're arguing, executive privilege, because that's what it is. And even if they did, which, by the way, they've gone beyond that, they even said, sure, we'll give the guy a plane if he can get here. But the problem is that once he enters the port, he's automatically violating federal law. There's no SCOTUS can't say shit about that, because as soon as he steps foot on this American soil, he's illegal and he's deportable. We can send him anywhere in the world we want. And once we get the state, we send him right back to El Salvador, which would happen. So let me ask you, John, what the hell do these people think they're going to accomplish besides making themselves look stupid for the midterms?
Well, this is why I was curious to know what you would make of the argument of, look, let's just cut the legs out from under this. Let's just have the guy back. You can't. I agree. I agree. But let's say, for argument's sake, that like using his executive privilege, he could somehow get the guy back to the United States. Let's say they created a legal mechanism to get the guy back.
Oh, it's a miracle that he comes back. Okay, hypothetical.
Yeah, and then they just immediately correct the paperwork and then drop kick him back out of the country straight away.
Correct. That's all that would happen. He will never go back to Maryland, no matter what. There's no legal means for him to go back to Maryland. What happened would be he'd be taken at the port of entry. He'd be arrested.
Yeah.
They have the stay lifted because of the executive branch, and he would just be deported to El Salvador again. That's what would happen. Nobody, John, not one person has told me anything other than that will happen, because there's no road for any other possibility legally. So again, when I ask people, what do you expect happening? And they're like, well, give him a fair trial. A trial for what? There's no trial here. There's nothing to have a trial for. He's an illegal alien that got deported. There's no trial.
The fact that some people seem to think that he can be brought back to the United States, he'll get an apology, and then, he'll be sat back around his kitchen table with his abused wife.
Right? Yeah, that's not happening.
It's not happening. It's not happening.
So let me ask you this: the people that recognize this, the intelligent people that understand constitutional law to at least basics, because again, if you haven't read the Constitution, go read it. Go read the Article 1, Article 2, and Article 3 powers. They are very different powers, right? Did the forefathers give the judicial branch power of the purse? No. Who did they give that to? Congress, right? That's their power. So Article 1 and Article 2 work together on this. Judicial power, the third power didn't get shit to saying this from the founding fathers. As a matter of fact, Thomas Jefferson said the greatest threat to democracy is a judicial oligarchy, where you have all these 675 to 677 district court judges saying, hey, you know what? We can tell the president what to do. We can make nationwide policy. No, they can't. They were never supposed to do that. But they did once in 1963. And they issued a national injunction. And that ever since then, they had other ones issued. They had like 6 and so under Biden. They had like 12 or something under Obama. But Trump, first time around, they had like 70 injunctions. Second time, 40. It's judicial lawfare. And it's not because Trump is doing anything illegal. That's what they're saying. Oh, he's doing something wrong. No, SCOTUS agrees with him on almost all of this stuff. SCOTUS said he can use the AAEA Act, the Alien Enemy Act, to deport these people because they are an invasion. And it has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with anything, but you have illegal people coming to our country, which has been the problem since the foundation of our country. You have to have secure borders. Every country has to have this. You live in the UK. What happens if you open up your borders and say to every Islamic person in the world, hey, come on, just come in. You're free to come in. What would happen to your country?
Well, I mean, it's sort of happening. I personally don't use the word "quote unquote" invasion because it makes it sound like I'm putting every single Muslim person in one box.
The illegal ones is an evasion, not the legal ones. The legal ones are fine, but the illegal ones is an evasion.
But the big problem with the illegal immigration that we do have is that it's all, the vast majority of the justification for the illegal immigrants that are coming to our country is that they're fleeing persecution, but not a one of them have like passports or documentation. They throw it in the channel on the way over, or get rid of it beforehand. So the huge proportion of them are either criminals, and it's not if like from the Ukraine.
These are not asylum seekers for the most part.
Yeah, they're not. So the asylum seekers that are coming from Ukraine are women and children. The asylum, because the men have
yeah, I agree with you that. Yeah, it's not. It's more the women and children that are asylum seekers. But let me ask you this: so this guy comes across in 2019. He's picked up with 2 other MS gang members. It was, again, they're just hanging out in the middle of the night with somebody, because that's not how it works. It's not. But do you think that the American public, when they look at this situation, the middle of America, right, they're going to think, oh, the Democrats are standing up for due process in the American way and make sure that normal American citizens have their due rights? No, they're not. This has nothing to do with American citizens. This is irrelevant when it comes to American citizens. Trump is not going to just whisk away American citizens in the middle of the night. That doesn't work that way. These are criminals. And so when I ask you, why didn't this guy apply for asylum ship as soon as he crossed over the border? It wasn't until after he got caught. Why? What? Nobody's been able to answer that question. He had a year to file for asylum when he crossed the border, but he chose not to. And it wasn't until after he got caught to put in paper for asylum. That's not fishy to anybody?
Yeah. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same as problem as we have here. Illegal immigrants come across on a boat. Sometimes they're picked up on the beach. Sometimes they're not. To be honest with you, the vast majority of them are picked up on the beaches. They just sit there and wait because they know that they're going to be detained. They're going to do the best to identify them. They're going to be given by immigration. They're going to be given a date to appear. We'll then put them up in a hotel. The UK is spending £8 million a day housing asylum seekers in hotels.
Yeah, well, they were doing the same thing here. Biden was putting them up in New York City penthouses at thousands of dollars a head. Yeah,
we've got like.
Well, let's look at this real quick, John.
And then they just go into the gig economy. They go into the cash economy, and they start working as like Deliveroo or Uber drivers or whatever. None of them are properly documented, and none of them are paying taxes because they don't have a right to work. They don't have a national insurance number. And then when it's time for them to appear to have a judgment on their asylum status, they just don't turn up.
Yeah, well, that's what happened on this. He didn't go to some of his hearings. He missed traffic court too. But let's talk about this real quick.
But then quickly, just super quick, because then eventually what tends to happen is these people will get arrested, or they'll come into contact with the authorities just through the Brownian motion of life. They'll get pulled over by the police or something. Then they'll get detained, maybe, and then we have to start the whole process again, where they then get put back out into the community to turn up to a second date for their asylum status to be adjudicated, and they don't turn up for that either. And then eventually, when some of them commit a particularly bad crime that's justified, where we're justified in actually detaining them, we then have to go through this insanely and just this really bloated bureaucratic process to get all the way through to then just have the European Court of Human Rights step in and tell me we can't send them back to their home country because their life's at risk. It costs hundreds of thousands of pounds just to deport one person.
Oh yeah, it's a very expensive process,
and there's millions of them. So it will take us.
That's why they're trying to hobble him. They know this is a big process, and so they don't want them done. They want illegal aliens. I mean, here's the thing. This is why MAGA is growing, because MAGA does not want illegal immigration, but the Democrats are doing everything in their power to keep it. Why? I mean, they issued millions of Social Security numbers, and these Social Security numbers have been found on Medicaid rolls, and actually people have voted that are non-citizens. Even on the voter registration rolls in California, on the form, it says, why, if you want to withdraw from the party, I'm not even joking, if you want to withdraw from the party, one of the things, the reasons is listed as being a non-citizen. Well, how the hell did you become a registered voter in the first place if you're a non-citizen? That makes no sense.
So there's an option to admit that you're a non-citizen on a ballot form.
Right.
Right. Exactly. I have the form. I read it. It's ridiculous. But let me ask you this. So like here, this guy, Attila one says Trump administration openly admitted to floating the idea of deporting citizens. Okay. Well, first of all, if they're been a naturalized citizen that came over here from a visa that was from fraud on a fraudulent basis, they should be able to revoke that. Visas are revocable. Now, as far as like citizens that are actually like born here, let's give a hypothetical option. And again, this is hypothetically, because again, he's talking about he doesn't want anchor babies, right? And I know it's kind of a pejorative term, but he really doesn't want that. But that's again, I'm not agreeing with Trump on birthright citizenship. I think that we should keep birthright citizenship. That's my view. So I do disagree with him on that. But however, that's what his thing is, right? He wants to end birthright citizenship so people don't come here in America, have a baby, and all of a sudden they get all the benefits. I can understand that. There's a discussion to be had on that at least, okay? And if it did change, I would not oppose it, but I think it's questionable. However, let's say they give the option to people that have been convicted of very heinous crimes that are going to have the death penalty. And they said, look, having the death penalty is a very expensive process. We all agree with this. And they say, hey, we're going to give you the option. We're going to execute you. We're going to send you out of the country to some minimum prison or whatever. A lot of people would take that option, right? So when they're saying floating the idea of deporting citizens, felons, there's a lot of discussion to be had about that. And so that doesn't mean that we should not have the discussion, right? We're talking about people that have committed crimes. We're not talking about the American citizen that has, jaywalking. We're talking about violent murderers, rapists, people that have done very heinous crimes. And again, most of them that have come here on a visa. That's what really he's talking about. He's talking more about people that came here that have visas that have been committing crimes and they're going to be deported, even though they came here legally. Should they have the ability to be deported if they came here and started to basically go against the American way? That's kind of what the discussion is going to be. So they're not talking about sending the average person to deporting me as a naturalized citizen just because reasons. It's stupid. But you see how they take the worst possible slippery slope like it's a possibility. Look, you can't live your life by worst case possibilities like that. We can't run a country like that. That's insane.
Yeah, of course you can't. And so in the UK, again, it obviously the legal system is similar but different. We had an issue with when she fled the country, she was a second generation immigrant. Her parents immigrated to the UK legally. I can't remember where they were from. They were from some part of Asia. They're a Muslim family basically. But their daughter, who was 15 or 16 at the time, was essentially groomed online by ISIS terrorists. And she fled the country and went and joined up with ISIS. I remember that story.
And she wanted to come back, right? And
she essentially ended up becoming an ISIS bride, and then she ended up in a refugee camp in Pakistan somewhere.
Screw around and find out, right?
Conditions. Yeah, she'd obviously had several children, a few of whom had died from basically exposure. And
I felt bad for her as a human, as a humanitarian, but she did it herself.
Our government revoked her citizenship because she had dual Pakistani UK citizenship.
Right, dual citizenship, right, exactly.
Yeah, so
there are ways you can do that.
We're not allowed. The UK, there's no legal structure for revoking the citizen of a UK national who only has UK national citizenship. We're not allowed to make a person stateless according to our laws.
Correct.
But because she did have a citizenship with Pakistan, they removed her UK citizenship, and that just removed all of the legal options from coming back to the UK. Now, personally, in that circumstance, I disagreed with it. The main reason being was that she was groomed. She is in part a victim herself.
I agree. And I get that too. I think
she was also born.
Argument made there, right?
She was also born that she was groomed. UK. Yeah, and the reason that I think it's a bad idea is because I think it sets a terrible precedent. Because we have a devil of a time getting countries to accept back their citizens.
I agree.
So from the globe, on the national stage, if we're revoking UK citizenship to prevent somebody from coming back to the country that we as a nation are responsible for, I think that sends entirely the wrong message.
Real quick, Justin makes a brilliant point here, and I thought about this as well before. And by the way, hi Justin, good to hear you, man. Love this guy. So Justin, you're right. And here's the thing: if we have a contractual facility prison on American soil in a foreign area, that's considered to be American soil. So we're talking about citizens being, he's talking about sending criminals to another country. If it's on American soil, like Guantanamo Bay, right? We can send some people to Gitmo, right? Right? Correct? Can we not? Are they not citizens?
I mean, I would say you probably can.
Right. Well, we do. We send people to Gitmo.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing here is
where's Gitmo located again? Because it's not in the United States. It's located where? Oh, Cuba. So we already send people that are criminals to places that are not America. This is not something new that they're discussing here. We're not talking about sending the average American person here. That's just the most silliest argument in the world.
Well, there's a distinction between something being sovereign territory, like an embassy or a military base, as opposed to it being like the United States proper.
I haven't looked at egg prices yet, and I think it's a pretty silly metric considering it was Biden administration that killed all the birds because of the avian flu. But we're not, our economy is not based on egg prices.
Yeah, it's obviously you can look at certain products as a CPI, as a consumer price index.
Yeah.
Economically in the
and that's the main metric that we use.
Economists talk about something called the Mars bar index, because obviously they track.
Yeah, exactly. And the more exactly, literally. Yep.
And they usually find that some products track the mean distribution of the CPI better than others. So if you just want a quick read on it, then you can. Mars bars are one of the ones.
But that's true though. That really is a metric called the Mars bar. It was by Michael Bond, and basically it was just like. I mean, obviously it's a funny way of saying it, but
you don't get to use eggs. Using eggs to try and track what your CPI is doing after you've just had to kill millions of chicken laying.
Right, it makes no sense, right?
It's a stupid thing.
Bad way to do your
It's obviously going to be inaccurate. Yeah,
correct. But real quick, so let's talk about this real quick. So let's talk about the facts here. Okay, so the pro debate says pretty sure school is just ruled we can't deport people without due process. Not exactly what they, but whatever. 9-0 against Trump. Okay, first of all, let's get the facts out there, and you can again go verify this. Verify this, John. You're a smart guy, relatively speaking. I want you to verify this.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's the best compliment you get. Okay, you know me, man. I don't get compliments easy. Take what you can get. So I don't know what the price of eggs are. I have no idea. And again, they vary all over the country. But this was not a 9-0 ruling. This is a lie from the media. You know how I know this? Because I'm not an idiot. The Supreme Court's decision was unsigned and it was not per curiam. And I'm probably butchering that from Latin because I don't speak Latin. But what it basically means is it wasn't from the entire ruling of the court. This was unsigned. So you don't know what the other members of the Supreme Court ruled. You cannot say technically it was 9-0. You can't. Go ask a lawyer. You cannot technically say it was 9-0. That was misinformation. And Stephen Miller just said the same thing. But I think he said it's because to fight it because everybody else was saying it. But technically you cannot say it was 9-0. You can't. Now, was it a 9-0 against Trump? No. If anything, it was for Trump. And people are going to be like, what? Let me explain to you what SCOTUS ruled here, because a lot of people do not understand it. What SCOTUS ruled was there was a procedural error. It was an administrative error, which they didn't get, but it wouldn't have changed the outcome. That's a fact. And they said, okay, there's no judicial remedy here, right? There's no judicial remedy where we can actually get this guy back. We don't have the power to order him back. We don't want him back. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to have a mealy-mouthed kind of ruling and say, well, we're just going to tell the president to facilitate his return and confuse a lot of people by what facilitate means. Because facilitate in the common sense obviously means to make happen or try to make happen. But this is a legal ruling here. They speak in legalese. And if you go look what it facilitate means according to immigration policy, as an English person even knows, just means to remove any barriers prohibiting their reentry. That's what the term means. It doesn't mean to actually help get them back. Why? Because SCOTUS cannot interfere with diplomatic foreign policies. That's what's outside their power.
Well, also facilitate in UK legalese means the same thing. So
yeah, this is not something controversial. But a lot of people they see the word facilitate and they don't understand in legal terms in immigration law that means a very different thing. This is a legal ruling, not your normal uses of terms. But here's the thing. SCOTUS kicked it back down to the judge and said, Judge, what the hell do you mean by effectuate? This was a slap in the face, a little bit, a gentle reminder to the judge saying, you're asking us to do something that we fundamentally cannot do. And you're a court judge, a district court judge, and you don't understand this? This does not look good. This is not good that you as a district court judge do not understand your limitations as a judge, that you think that SCOTUS can even rule something that they cannot rule. And that's what they asked. That's what they said. Read it very carefully. Read it very carefully. It says that they need clarification what they judge meant by effectuate, and reminded the judge to give due regard to the executive branch. What they mean by this is legal speak for you better pay attention to the executive powers because you're stepping on powers that are not yours to step on. That's what it read. That's what they were saying to the judge.
Yeah. And like, how mad would it be if? And
real quick, well, I'm sorry, I didn't make sure off. I just have to clarify this. No, the SCOTUS did not say to effectuate. The lower court, the district court, the one that doesn't have no accountability to the American people, the ones that were not elected, the ones that should have no say in national policy because that's not their domain. They said to effectuate his return, and the SCOTUS said, "What the hell do you mean by effectuate his return? We can't get this guy back. He's not our citizen. We have no power over another sovereign nation." And if we did, what are we going to do? If they could order people to back, then why don't they order back the effectuated return of hostages, American hostages? Why don't we ever see SCOTUS say, hey, you need to effectuate the return of these hostages? You don't see that because they cannot do it. So if they cannot do it for American citizens that are hostages, what the fuck do they think these people are going to do for an illegal alien, for an MS-13 terrorist? It makes no sense. Help me understand this, John, because I'm so confused of how people are getting something so basic so wrong.
Well, I mean, in terms of the legal terminology, people. I mean, you know, the distinction between like colloquial language that's descriptive or prescribed language, like it is like prescribed terminology in legal terms, people mess up and switch around all the time, don't they? We see that with philosophy. Where people
exactly, good point.
They'll use a philosophical term in a colloquial sense, or completely the wrong conclusion from it. But I think what's happened is the initial judge district court has used the word effectuate because knowing full well that this was going to end up in front of the Supreme Court, and if this district judge had have said it is so ordered that you must return this person, the Supreme Court wouldn't have even there'd have been no question at all. You can't order him to do that. But because they set it up, because they set it up with ambiguous language, they've had to send it back to the district court going, what the fuck do you mean here?
So let's ask Pro Debates because he thinks he understands this. So what was the error? What was the administrative error? Tell me. And how would it have been adjudicated? How would it have been fixed? What's the judicial remedy here? I want Pro Debates' expert opinion on here. Because he's like, where's the evidence of the MS-13 terrorist? We've already been over that. 2 immigration judges, an appeals judge, 2 heads of state, 2 presidents that have counter-terrorist surveillance on this guy, a deputy sheriff who said he's 10,000% sure he's MS-13, a police report from 2019 that determined he was a MS-13. What other? The Homeland Security says he's MS-13. So if you're saying there's no evidence, you're just lying at this point. I'm not even going to take you seriously. Anybody who says there's no evidence, you're lying or you're just delusional. There's no other explanation for it. I mean, but anyways. So what was the error?
Or you think that the only thing that can adjudicate evidence is what a jury trial?
There is no trial. There's no trial. There's nothing to adjudicate.
There's no need for one. But what we're getting is what evidential standard are you aiming at? What would you accept as evidence here?
Exactly.
Because
okay, but again,
one sec.
Yeah, 1 sec. Yes, Doug, I'm going to be trying to stream a little bit more, and now that I'm feeling better. Follow me on Twitter because most of my content is on Twitter and Facebook. I put out stuff on Twitter because it's fast. I'm doing a lot of reading every day. I'm pretty much full time doing this now, but I'm not making that much off of it. But it's okay. I'm not doing this for money. People are like, "Oh, Steve went MAGA for money." Dude, let me tell you, there's far more money in being against MAGA than for it, because Democrats are just trying to shut down everything Trump does left and right. But I'm doing this because it's my core values, because I'm an American citizen and I'm a patriot and I'm an ex-military. And I think that anybody that has ever read the Constitution can see that the judicial oligarchy is happening.
They are waging war against Trump. We already know how much they try to frame Trump the first time around. And people are like, why didn't you come out and talk about it then? Because I wasn't unaware of a lot of this stuff. I had a lot of stuff going on. I lived with a person that I lived with for a couple months who I knew went to high school with, right? People know that I moved several years ago, right? And when I was in the process of moving, I was staying with a friend that I knew in high school. She was MAGA. My 2 former roommates were MAGA. But she never really talked to me about that stuff. But she finally said, hey, Steve, hey, congratulations on, looking into it and coming to the right conclusion. And she said, surprising that you didn't then. And I'm like, I'm not trying to use this as an excuse, but it is an excuse that I was focused on other things. I had a lot going on. But now that I'm aware of a lot of things that I wasn't aware of back then, people say, they say, do your research, do your due diligence, look into it. And I did. And I came with a very different conclusion than they wanted me to. And I'm not at all apologetic of that at all, because I know the conclusion I came to is correct. It's just obvious. But anyways, I'm going to be trying, Doug, but I want Pro Debates to answer the question. Pro, so you say that there was an error. What was the error? Because you still haven't answered what the error was. This is what I'm saying. What I've noticed, by the way, John, none of these people can actually answer the questions as asked. They have to go down some other rabbit hole that I'm not interested in. And I hold their feet to the fire. Just answer this simple question. No, you didn't answer the question. What was the actual error? Tell me the actual error. No, his arrest was not an error. He was deportable. He was arrested properly by ICE. He was removed properly by ICE. He's been confined properly by their sovereign nation of El Salvador. So none of that was an error. That's just wrong. None of that was the error. So you're just absolutely, just fundamentally wrong on that. Can anybody tell me what the error was? Because I've even mentioned what the error was. John, do you remember what the error was? Because he doesn't seem to know.
Yeah, so the error here was he was arrested, identified for deportation, put on the flight to El Salvador. And at the time all of that happened, they didn't realize that he had a hold deportation because
Correct.
He had made a petition.
Yeah. And by the way, it's not a matter of disagreeing with SCOTUS. It's a matter you don't understand what SCOTUS said. There's a big difference. Not you, but this guy doesn't understand what SCOTUS said.
I know, I get that.
Because he doesn't know what the error is.
At the time, I think it was in 2019 when he was arrested and identified as to be deported. And he said, look, you can't deport me back to El Salvador because my life will be in danger.
Correct.
So they
why? Because of why? Arrival what? Arrival what?
Because of rival gangs.
There you go.
This is his own statement.
Yeah.
The administrative error here was that they didn't remove hold before they deported El Salvador.
Right, exactly.
But as soon as MS-13 were declared a terrorist organization, the hold could be withdrawn at will.
Correct. Oh, and here's the thing. This is what I'm no longer tolerating. So you haven't read it, Steve. You're lying. No, I have read it, and I'm telling the truth. And if you think otherwise, fuck off. I don't give a shit. You obviously don't even know what the case was. You didn't know what the error was, and I'm not playing this bullshit any longer. This is why I've gone MAGA, because I'm tired of people like this lying to people about it. They're absolutely lying. They didn't understand it. They still don't understand it. He got the error wrong. It's like, and he says, have you read the ruling? No shit. Of course I've read the ruling. Just because you quoted it doesn't mean you understand it. This is the problem. You don't understand the ruling. Because you quoted, just because you quote something doesn't mean you understand it. So where verify sources a clear state that MAGA is correct? Well, that he's a terrorist from the police file. The police file in 2019 says very clearly that he was a member of MS-13. Homeland Security has designated that. So again, John explained the paperwork error. That's what it was. It was a paperwork error.
And let's just obviously
real quick.
He was
just wrong. You're lying to people. Pro debates. Why are you lying to people? That's not.
He was designated as a member of MS-13 under Biden's administration.
But let me ask you, John, where in the ruling did they say the arrest was wrong? The removal or confinement? What they said was he should have gotten due process to have their stay of removal removed, which they're wrong on that. There's no denying that, but it was a procedural error because there was a paperwork error because the manifest wasn't flagged properly. But Pro Debates doesn't know that. He doesn't understand what the manifest was or why the guy was on the manifest to be deported in the first place. So he got moved up on the list. Wait. I want to make sure he understands this. Pro Debates, do you understand that he was on a list to be deported. He was on the standby list. Why was he on a standby list if he wasn't deportable? And if he was deportable, that means they could remove him. He was deportable. That's so see what I'm saying? These people don't get this stuff right, and it's just annoying. It really is.
The quote error that was made here, the only difference in outcome.
He doesn't need a warrant for his arrest.
He might have deported a few months later.
Yeah, let me ask you this, John. This guy lies, though. He says the government has cited no basis for law for his warrantless. He doesn't need a warrant for his arrest. And by the way, SCOTUS doesn't get everything. You got to remember, SCOTUS doesn't get a full briefing on all of this stuff. So they didn't probably even see the evidence that he was MS-13, or that again, SCOTUS is making some weird rulings lately. But here's the fact: he was deportable. He was able to be arrested by ICE. And Sotomayor can have her opinion. She's welcome to it. But we don't know what the other opinions of the 5 courts are. But the fact is, let's look at the actual facts. He was in the country illegally. Correct? Pro debates. So was he in the country illegally? Yes. Was he deportable? Yes. Was he lawfully deported? Yes. Was he supposed to have a withdrawal, a stay of withholding removed first? Yes. Did he? No. Did he get any for it? No. Was he supposed to? Yes. We all understand this. But nothing would have changed. He would have been deported to El Salvador if they would have got the stay removed. Correct? And I just want pro debates to answer that question.
They could have deported somewhere else.
And again, see the rhetoric we have. Steve knows better than SCOTUS. He's not reading SCOTUS right. And again, one opinion does not mean the full court. And again, what she's saying isn't necessarily wrong, but it's definitely a little bit, to people that are reading it who are not understanding it, it makes, they're going with it as it meaning something that it's not. So again, let me ask you again, if they would have removed the stay, would he have gone to El Salvador? Would he have been deported just the same? And I don't want anything else but your answer on this, because you're just bloviating. If they would have removed the stay, would have he been removed to El Salvador, gone to SCOTUS, and the same thing would have happened? I just want a yes or no answer, Pro Debate. Can you do that for me? Because it's just annoying that you're just blowing smoke at people's ass. Because I've actually read it. I understand it. Legal people understand it. I agree with them. I'm not the only person out there saying this. There's many lawyers out there that have read the thing and saying the exact same thing I am. The only one that's not, if for some reason, is Legal Eagle. And I don't understand why he's left out so much of information from his videos. Legal Eagle has like 3 million subscribers, and he left out so much information. What do you mean maybe? What do you mean maybe? Where else would he have gone? Where else would he have gone? If they lifted his stay and he's from El Salvador and they send people back to their national origin, nation of origin, where else would he have gone? So it's not maybe, it's yes. There was due process. It was just a paperwork error. So if they would have lifted it, he would have gone to SCOTUS. There you go. So there we go. That's all there is to it. You're just, well, it's show me a path that could be changed. Show me a legal path where he would have been deported. Well, he could have been deported anywhere. But the fact is that's his home nation. Why would he not be deported to his home nation? So there you go. But you notice all they say is due process. It's like, yeah, bye-bye. So it's all they have. It's all they have is this due process. And I bet you Pro Debates doesn't know the difference between substantive due process and procedural due process. But that's their rallying cry. That's their rallying cry. Yet they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. This guy got his due process. He's done. He's going to rot in prison. I got no qualms about it. Be as may. And I want every single American to understand that this country has been invaded by people that are not supposed to be here because the Biden administration and Obama too wanted them here. That they wanted them here. And the American people said, no, we don't want them here. Unfortunately, we cannot get everybody in this country. Well, we want people to have legal immigration. We want a multicultural society where people come in from all walks of life. Absolutely. Right? And again, well, it's like this. What was this crime? Well, it's not a crime to be a terrorist or a gang member, but his crime was entering the country illegally. That's a federal immigration law that you cannot do that. So to come here illegally is a civil matter, right? But it's against immigration law. He can be arrested for being in this country illegally. Can he not? Can he not, John? If you're in this country illegally, is an ICE mandate to arrest people that are here illegally? Is that their mandate?
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah. course you can.
If even if let's say for argument's sake that I applied for a short-term visa to come on holiday to the United States, right? I'd have gone through the legal process, have a right to be stood on the ground upon which I'm stood on based on your legal process. I don't have to do anything wrong at all. The American government can revoke that right at will.
Exactly.
So if I engage with the legal process and they don't need arrest, I don't need an arrest warrant or anything. They don't even need to justify themselves. They can just revoke the visa that gives me a right to remain. I can be detained and returned back to my country of origin. So if they can do that to somebody who's applied for a visa to visit the country, why could they not do that to somebody who didn't do that at all? They just crossed.
100%.
The very act of entering the country was illegal.
Correct. So let me ask this like this guy. Hey, Pit Snipe Husker, do you want illegal immigration? Do you want people crossing the borders legally? And most of them, again, are going to be gang members, terrorists, smugglers, human traffickers. They're not these are not PhD people coming across the border. Do you want illegal immigration? Because again, I don't understand why these people have put their eggs in one basket, because this guy, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, is a known terrorist by the Homeland Security, by 2 nations. To deny that is just obscene. It is obscene, but it doesn't matter, because it's going to look to the middle of America, the voters, the heartland people, that you have American senators and American congressmen going down, shaking hands with a terrorist, having margaritas with a terrorist. Whether you believe it or not is irrelevant. The voters, what they see is the Democrats literally have gotten to the point where they're so willing to try to get illegal immigration. You got Chuck Schumer out there going, so we need all these immigrants. We should just, give them all passes, and we should all, give them amnesty and all this other shit. And America's going, no, this is not what we want. And how he's not in prison, I don't know. How Adam Schiff is not in prison, I don't know. How Crockett is not in prison, I don't know. I mean, look at Letitia James, Attorney Letitia James. She's the one that filed the suit against Trump for $400 billion or whatever they got, right? That I think it was $400 million that they kicked down to 170 something million, and that he's getting appealed. She got busted for the exact same thing that she was accusing him of, and she overcharged him like a mofo, and she's guilty as shit. Well, does anybody disagree with that? By the way, have you been following that?
Yeah, I did. The thing that amazes me is they used Trump of getting basically the crime they claimed that he committed. And to be honest, from an admin point of view, I mean, technically, from a law point of view, I think what he did in terms of overvaluing, he probably did. A valuation it's somewhat of a subjective thing, isn't it?
Well, it is, but they took the high evaluation. Right? They went out of their way to take like the Mar-a-Lago valuation. We all know that was not the correct valuation. But bullshit.
But the judge during the ruling said that by his estimations, Mar-a-Lago was only worth $15 million.
It wasn't worth that.
You couldn't buy an house in Mar-a-Lago for $18 million.
Yeah,
it's acres and acres.
No, I think the value was. I think he said it was 18 million, wasn't it?
So basically in order to maximize the fines that they could
right, exactly. That's what they're trying to do,
because the product of the fine is a product of the difference, the value that the court judges to be and what Trump said it was.
Right. Well, I mean, but the whole
I might be wrong, but that was my understanding.
The estimate, I think the value itself, the overall estimate was hundreds of millions of dollars. The actual property is hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was. I had to guess north of 200 to 300 million. Correct.
More importantly, during the trial, Deutsche Bank turned up, said no, he was a great customer. He paid the loan back on time.
Which he did.
We would happily trade.
Yeah, which he did.
So literally, there's no victim. If he defaulted on it, and then Deutsche Bank, because it was overvalued, couldn't recoup their costs.
Right. But it was a huge amount of variation. It was all the way down to like 15 million to like hundreds of millions. I mean, that was a weird evaluation. But be that as may, but what is she getting busted for? For having her principal residency in Virginia when she's the AG of New York? You can't have that. Matter of fact, not only is that mortgage fraud, it's election fraud too. And then she used her husband her father as her husband to get a lower interest rate. And then she has 5 family unit dwellings, which I've seen in New York. It's 5 units. You can tell it's 5 units. It's easy. No, you could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
hasn't she? Is it
for the last 20 years?
Bureaucracy, yeah.
Yeah. So she's committed the fraud. She's been turned over to the Department of Justice. And I think she's going to be one of the first dominoes to fall because she completely targeted Trump, completely. And the amount of irony is mind-blowing.
That she was going to. She categorically stated that she was going to look to find something.
Yeah, and she tried to. She went out of her way. It was politically motivated. And as they asked Pam Bondi, is it the policy of the Department of Justice to go out of the way to find something to charge people, or is it they have something that needs to be charged and they do it? And Pam Bondi said, no, the Department of Justice should not be looking for things like that because that's political weaponization of the judicial system, which Biden did. They weaponized the Department of Justice against Trump. This is not opinion. This is clearly fact. I mean, if you haven't, I think you probably have, but if you have not looked into the Crossfire hurricane report, it's telling. We already knew it. I mean, when they dropped, people already knew. But for the average person that had no idea, they say, "Oh crap, these people were right. The Hunter Biden laptop was Hunter Biden's laptop. There was a collusion.
The notion
against
that
Trump to say that it wasn't.
That laptop was going to be anything other than Hunter Biden's actual laptop.
I always believed it was his laptop. I never doubted it.
Yeah, but
I never bought into that Russian bullshit.
But
people did.
It's too ridiculous for it to be a hoax. The way I would believe it if it actually was. I mean, honestly, what sort of moron leaves an unsecured laptop with video footage?
He was on drugs.
Blow off of hookers.
Yeah,
honestly,
he wasn't thinking when he dropped that off. You know, he wasn't thinking clearly. But here's the thing. How many people that actually argued that it was a hoax have ever come out and said, oh, shit, we were wrong? I haven't seen anybody. But they were wrong. But there was people out there perpetuating that. Half of them were in the government. You have the government going, oh, there's strong evidence of collusion. There's strong evidence this is a hoax. And you know what Trump said? I'm going to get back. I'm going to become president again. And I'm going to hold every one of you motherfuckers responsible. I'm going to fire every one of you, and we're going to have justice because every one of you lied about this, and you changed the course of history by fraud and election interference. There's no doubt in my mind about this. And this is why MAGA is so strong, because they see the truth now. They know that Trump was telling the truth about a lot of things. You know, was it about everything? No, whatever. I mean, maybe he had wrong opinions about something. I don't care. But that was first time around. Second time around, he's doing exactly what I wanted and other Americans wanted. Why would I fault him for that? I criticized him during the first administration for not doing what he's doing now. So why would I be critical of him for doing exactly what I wanted him to do all along? I don't understand it. No? Your curated chat? No, my chat's not really that curated. I try to be free form. If you got, you know, well, if you want to talk, we can discuss things. There's no, I haven't deleted anything. What do you mean by curated? I haven't deleted anything. I haven't done anything. I have one of the most open platforms there is on these subjects. You know?
The thing I find frustrating about stuff like this is,
okay, wait. Can you answer this person's question? Where do they go find this? Because it's already dropped a couple weeks ago.
Oh, what was the report called?
What did Trump do on the last day of office? I think it was in the first presidency. He signed an executive order to declassify something, and there's a reason why he signed an executive order to declassify it. And that declassification literally was put out public not more than a couple weeks ago. What was that? What was it called? Crossfire.
I can't remember. Yes, the Crossfire and the Hurricane Report.
Yes, Crossfire Hurricane Report. So there you go. Go read the thousands of pages of Crossfire Hurricane Report that show unequivocally that the Department of Justice hid the fact that the Hunter Biden laptop was real. They hid the fact that the collusion thing for Russia was a hoax that they perpetuated in order to keep Americans silent about the fact that Hillary Clinton had email servers in an unsecured location at a property that had been supposedly hacked, and I believe it probably was, by China. There was probably some pay-to-play stuff that they got their hands on. But that's one of the reasons I think that they wanted this stop so bad, because China knows shit that they're not supposed to know. I think they have a lot of top-secret information. And Zuckerberg didn't help. You guys know that Zuckerberg went in front of Congress and testified he had no relationship to China. Then to come to find out that not only did he have a relationship to China, he stored Facebook server information where? On China's servers, and they weren't even secure. They had POP servers that were insecure, that were hackable, and that probably were hacked. And then he lied to Congress, said, well, I have no relationship to them. Bullshit. You lied. You had American data on Chinese servers. You were teaching people Mandarin or Cantonese or whatever it was. You were taking out pages of Chinese dissidents. This is fact. They've called Zuckerberg back to testify again, by the way. So yeah, it's a dumb, angry dude shouting. I don't shout. How am I? First of all, I am angry a little bit. I'm angry at the Democrats, but I don't think I'm dumb. I have a background in a lot of different subjects. I have 3,000 videos. I have 10 to 15 million downloads. I have 1 million downloads on iTunes. I got a background in a lot of different subjects. So I don't think that I'm dumb, but if you think that I am, that's fine. But why don't you explain to me where I'm wrong rather than just making personal attacks? Because this is what MAGA is sick of. This is why people have turned against the Democrats. They never have anything of substance. It's a personal attacks, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, just because you support large chunks of like the MAGA movement, doesn't mean that you can't be critical of them. For example, the whole notion that of how like Trump in probability did sleep with a porn star. I mean, obviously that does not.
Well, you know what? Who the hell cares? It's such a bullshit thing. That like it's like okay, so what? It's such a and again they keep going back to Trump the man, right, rather than Trump the president. And it's just look. Even I was able to differentiate between Biden the man and Biden the president. I think I was very fair in my election coverage. Was I not? You were in it. Since 2016, I've done political coverage, minimal, but I did it with Chris Attlee, who now has copyright to my show. As people know, I did donate over and under to him. I may use the title every so often, but it's his intellectual property. I gave him the show, Chris Attlee from Hereticals. I made that very public. So it's all his, and I support him in making it popular. I don't get a dime from it. I have no business arranged with him of any kind. It is 100% his property to do what he wants. Okay, so when people say that, that Steve's doing this for whatever, no, I'm not getting a dime from any of this. Doug says, I'm glad Steve finally jumped ship as I did in 2015. Steve has been more than charitable over the years with his political positions, and him jumping ship now just reinforces how bad faith the left is. Absolutely. And yes, this is why I did it, Doug. Because me, of all people, I'm a centrist. I'm an agnostic. For me, when people tell me, Steve, you're a smart guy, go look into this stuff. And I do. And I come to the conclusion that, yes, Trump was unfairly politically targeted. And then I have people going, well, you came to the wrong conclusion. Then don't ask me to do my due diligence. Don't ask me to do my own research. Because you're not asking me to do my independent research. You're asking me to have groupthink and hive minds like not you have, Doug, but what they have, right? And so, yes, for me to actually come out and say that MAGA was right is a very huge thing. I've already lost people on it. But you know what? I will stand for my beliefs. And you know what happened when Chris Attlee was MAGA and he was all, right and all that kind of stuff? I didn't tell Chris, hey, look, you're MAGA. You support Trump. I can't be friends with you. No, I said, I don't understand it, but we'll look into it. Because he said, hey, Steve, look at the lying of the media. Look how much they lie. And it was not just normal media lying like we've had for day one. This is 10,000 times the amount of lying to cover up stuff that the Democrats have been doing by fleecing the American people, by using non-governmental organizations to money launder, to allow illegal immigration to the point where they're giving them away Social Security numbers. And by the way, John, it was on an Elon Musk post that I posted on where I even pointed out that Jackson Hewitt was using illegal aliens to get Social Security numbers in order to file for tax credits they weren't able to legally get. That now has over 100,000 views to it. This has like 500 bookmarks. And I told people they're going to look into this. If they don't look into this, then something's wrong. And you know what? Newsweek came out, 2 weeks later saying Hewlett Jackson's looking into this because that's against the law. And I called it. Because I recognized they were doing something BS. And so the left has been fostering this kind of stuff. The left has been promoting this kind of stuff, right? And it doesn't matter what Trump has done in the first presidency. It doesn't matter what he's done, in his teens or 30s or 40s. It's irrelevant. What I want to see is what he's doing to fix the country. And what I see is the borders has gone down to zero. They don't give him credit for that, right? I see him trying to decouple from China in order to either say, hey, China, play ball, or we're going to have two separate independent markets and countries can either do business with you or do business with us. something out of a sci-fi movie, but yeah, that has to happen. We do not need China's stuff. So China's trying to get other countries to play ball with them, but it's not working.
That or China have to stop stealing IP. That would be a good start.
Well, and they have to have fair and adequate trade deficits, right? And that's all this is for leverage, But people say, "Hey, Steve, go look at those charts. Is it right?" And I looked at those charts. No, there's an error on them. I admit that. The first column is improperly labeled. Those are not tariff rates. They're trade deficit rates. They're not the same thing. I grant that, but I think they were just trying to dumb it down and they probably rushed it. But I only got a B in economics, so it's not my area that I really can discuss too much. But I did take macroeconomics. Okay, I did. I got a B in macro and microeconomics. Pit Snipe Husker from Texas A&M. So do see what I'm saying? All it is personal attacks. Take Econ 101. I didn't need to take Econ 101. I took macroeconomics and microeconomics from Texas A&M's University. Pit Snipe. So again, see what I'm saying? They don't care about talking about the topics. It's all personal attacks with the left. And MAGA has had enough of it because, they're sick of it. They're tired of it.
And the thing with people saying, "Oh, cite this, cite that, cite the other." Obviously, there's a load of appeals going through right now. I suspect that the interest rate, it's a thing where he got the $400 million fine to get overturned. And then his convictions with 34 felony charges. I suspect that will end up being overturned as well.
Right, possibly, because those 34 felonies were actually originally misdemeanors, and there was only one, and they kind of just made 34 charges out of the one. And it was really, they actually had to change the law to make it a felony in order to go after him.
Yeah. And then the same is true with the case with this absolute fucking nutter.
Well, look, if it was like, look, Pipe Sniper, you want to talk about economics? I can get somebody here, one of these days where you discuss economic policies if you wish to. I know a lot of people, I assure you, but again, I'm not well versed in economic policies enough to discuss them in any comprehensive way. But what I do know about them from my studies in economics is that tariffs are a great way to have leverage and a great way to get an income, especially when we have a trade deficit that's so high and we're not getting the proper rates that we're getting. And I think that Trump said enough. We want to have a fair trade deficit.
Well, so it depends on what the motivation for the tariff is. If the motivation for the tariff is to generate income, then in the ideal world, it should be a modest tariff rate so that people don't abandon product, because it is your local population that pays for the tariff. The goods get imported into the country, and the price of the goods go up over and above the cost of production, and you can generate revenue from that, but you also put a tariff up unbelievably high. Here's the thing: your objective is to block your market from a competitor. It makes their goods expensive, and it forces the consumer to go and source an alternative, which may come from an alternate market or may come from the domestic market. It depends on the motivation for the tariff.
Real quick. Andrew says, Steve is long past the statute of limitations to be charged. I heard something along that too, but I don't know for sure about the statute of limitations, because usually the statute of limitations begins when the act is discovered, right? And so I don't know about that, if it was or not. I don't know. It could have been. I mean, again, because this AG was gunning for him, right?
Yeah.
So again, I could make that happen, but I was mostly talking about today, the SCOTUS cases. But like this guy, well, the Smoot-Hawley Act, by the way, of course that led to the Depression. But again, we were back then. There was other factors going on, right? And there were high tariffs. There were more than one country. We're doing very targeted tariffs, right? We're not doing across the board. We're changing tariffs for the automotive rates, for the mineral rights. And so, when we're talking about the Smoot-Hawley Act, that was a lot different time in what's going on than what's happening now, right? The reason why that had a major impact on the global economy was because that back then we were having problems with our agricultural exportations. And so that led to the Great Depression. That's not happening today. So the factors that were leading to the Great Depression in the Smoot-Hawley Act aren't even applicable nowadays. So when people are like, tariffs are bad because of the Smoot-Hawley Act, well, this isn't the same time period, right? I mean, I understand a lot of people don't like tariffs, but the Smoot-Hawley Act was really a very, very high tariff policy that made this fall into the Great Depression because there are not things guiding it. Here we're having very targeted tariffs, and they're much, much lower. They're like 10% across the board until we get things, smoothed out. He did pause them and go to a flat 10%, except for China.
Oh, also,
so there's a big difference there.
Going back to the Great Depression, it was a totally different economic environment. I mean,
right?
We have a fiat currency now. We don't have gold standard, which we did during the Great. I mean.
And what is his goal? His goal is to get production back. He wants domestic products, right? So he wants industry. That's what he wants. And we have to go back to an industrial age. We have to go back to producing in our own country. We cannot rely on foreign countries anymore. We certainly cannot rely on China for rare minerals. Do we have a stockpile of rare minerals? Yes, we do, but they don't last forever, And we're not, but we don't want to be beholden to a hostile nation like China is to us. They're an economic hostile relationship to us. And by the way, if you look at the relationship between the other countries, we have far, far, far more countries willing to partner with us than China has with them. So if they want to isolate themselves into their own little market, so be it. But that's not what they want, because then their own factory workers are going to get upset. The
left side of the political base in the United States has lost their collective shit because of this guy being deported from the country with some sort of nominal admin.
That's their focus. Literally, the rule.
But at the same time, they're like, well, hang on, tariff. But at the same time, they're going, tariffs are stopping me buying cheap tat from China. Right. China are busy literally killing people and transplanting their organs out of the Uyghur Muslims. And they're like, oh yeah, this seems like a good person I'd like to trade with.
Right. But look at the graphs. I've seen the graphs. You can see the countries that are willing to work with us as opposed to those who are working with China. Some will work with both, but China has very few places that will work with them independently of us. Right. And why would anybody support? I've had people even supporting China on this. What the hell's wrong with you? Now think about this. You're supporting China against your own goddamn country. You can hate Trump as much as you want, but you're acting against the interest of America. And you don't think Americans, middle-class Americans, are going to stand up and say, screw you? People like myself that serve in the military, patriots, are going to stand around and go, you're going to be buddy with hostile nations? No, we're not going to put up with that. So when people ask why do you become MAGA, it's because MAGA wants the best for America, and I'm a patriot. And they were right about shit. No matter how you slice it, the fuckers were right. I can't deny that. Look at Bill Maher. Look at his epiphany that he had. Do you know how big it was for Bill Maher to go have a dinner with the president of the United States and tell his liberal audience, man, he's not the man I thought he was. At least on this night, he was not the being evil dictator that people make him out to be. He was civil. He was cordial. He was funny. He laughed. We made jokes. And so people that are making him out to be a dictator, where do you go from there? If they're literally telling American people, they're literally telling the electorate, the people that voted him in office, you rather have somebody like Hitler than what? Illegal immigration? It's mind-blowing. Do they think this is going to sway a rational person? It's going to sway the far left because they're already swayed, but they're not going to change the mind of the average person.
I think it's another 80-20 issue. This like the whole
it is 80-20 probably. Yeah, I think immigration right now is 80-20. It's just like men in sports. I don't think it's about 80-20.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to quite be 80-20. I'll probably say 70-30. I think it is a bit. There are a lot of people in the middle who say, well, the United States was built on immigration, right. But there's a distinction.
Legal
right. Immigration. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we have to have legal immigration as well as we should. Absolutely, bring them all. If you come here legally, I don't care your skin color, height, weight. I don't care your nationality. Just don't be a terrorist. But if you come here legally and you want to become an American, absolutely. That's what America's based upon. This is why this is what I hate about the Democrats. The Democrats have to have identity politics. They have to make notice of skin color differences. They have to know religious differences, gender differences. When the Republicans, mostly for the most part, they're not perfect either, but as far as like MAGA, they don't care about your skin color. They don't care about your nationality. All they want to know is, are you an American? Do you have American values? And America has values. We are an independent sovereign nation that our own culture, just like any other country. Why we should be any different than any other culture, around the world? Why should we be the ones that have to have no culture? But we do. And our culture is, if you want to come to America, you do it properly, and we'll welcome you with open arms, like we have done for hundreds of years. And we don't care about your race or your nationality or your religion. We don't care. You're free to have it for yourself. But see how they make it all politicized? That to them, it's all about those particular personal identification things. And that's why MAGA accepts anybody. It's a whole notion that they're racist or they want a dictator is such bullshit. And I'm sorry, I'm not gonna just say things I don't believe. I've never done that with you guys, ever. I've stood my ground and I've said what I believe since day one. Since my first hangout in 2013, I've told you what my beliefs were. Have I ever wavered from that? And I've been right since 2013. I fought against flat earth. I fought against young creationism. I fought against people that are very evil people. And I've always been correct. And so when people say that Steve's gone MAGA, what'll happen? Well, I'm a patriot. And MAGA happened to be right. So believe it, don't believe it, I don't care. Subscribe, don't subscribe. It makes no difference to me. I'm not here to make myself popular on YouTube. Okay, I don't care about that any longer. I haven't done streaming for what, a year? I've been sick. I've been dealing with other things. I can't even get a full-time job because of being unwell. Okay, but here's something I strongly enough believed in order to come back to YouTube, and even though I sometimes feel like shit, I'm still going to put my views out there. And I went to a different format. I went to Facebook and Twitter, which I don't make a dime off of, but I do full time, basically. I spend a lot of time reading about stuff. And so people can think what they want, but the reality is, unless they can actually have civil conversations about it, their opinions mean nothing to me. And it shouldn't to you either. You cannot dictate your actions by the hive mind of people that want to believe things that are simply not true, and they're factually not true. And I'm wanting to stand my ground on that.
It shouldn't be lost on people that, like, if I think, like, it's usually the same people that were telling us that we had to just accept that a biological male was going to get in a boxing ring and
right, same thing.
Fuck out of a woman.
Yeah, and did I go along with that? Initially, sure, maybe like most people, like, okay, we'll capitulate a little bit, right? We'll give them a little bit of room, right?
What I mean is the authoritarian nature of stating that, and the thing for me is, like, around that whole discussion, like, my position basically is, if you're biologically male, then you can't be a woman. And if you're biologically female, you can't be a man. We can have a discussion around how tolerant society should be around people who want to take on the roles of men or women when they are the opposed.
Yeah, but that's
sex.
a completely different topic, right?
That's a completely different topic. And also, when it comes to, like, contact sports, where safety should be the primary concern, closely followed by the integrity of the competition.
That's not their concern. Their concern is identity politics.
People that are saying that it's authoritarian to go, well, hang on a minute.
But John, how much shit did I get for that? Even though I stood my ground, how much shit did I get for that? Even though I was right. Even though, listen very carefully to all those that are listening. The Supreme Court of the United Kingdom just recently, several days ago, determined that a woman is a biological female based upon sex. The Supreme Court, that's going to resonate around the world. Australia cannot now say otherwise. United States has already put mandates out there and executive orders to say that, hey, you have to abide by Title IX or you don't get any funding. This is going to be the case going forward. This is how the world has changed. And I've said for years, if you follow me on Twitter, because a lot of people don't. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you don't even know half the shit that I've been talking about, because I have a much bigger following right now on Twitter than I do on YouTube. Okay. Much bigger following. I've got, some of my posts get hundreds of thousands of views. Okay. So I have a reach there, I would say about a 500,000 reach, because my impressions were 1.8 million. And so if you divide that by half or a quarter, you should be able to determine your reach. So 100,000 of people at least get to see that, right? So my reach is much bigger on Twitter. But what people understand is that when you're talking about these subjects, they're complicated and they require a lot more nuance than people are trying to give to them. And unfortunately, you just don't have the ability to do that on certain platforms. And I think that having that ability on Twitter has made a huge difference, because the people on Twitter realize what's going on, right? By the way, Andrew, I think the biggest right now, and John, you can correct me, but I think the biggest right now is China, right?
Yeah.
They have 120 something. EU.
Yeah, they're reciprocal
Turkey and Mexico, I think. But the rest, the rest are pretty much playing ball with America, because they want to build wealth. That's the whole point of Trump economic policies, is to build wealth. And the way you do that is to increase everybody's monetary ability to purchase things by the value of the dollar and the amount of money you have and the amount of purchasing power you have for that amount of money. That's wealth. And so they're trying to do things like reduce inflation, which was down to 1.22%. That was extremely low, from 8% under Biden. That was done. He didn't get any credit for that, but that's the whole goal, is to make it more towards the middle class, where everybody gets some wealth out of it. Because I don't care what you think about Doge, but Doge is cutting waste. Doge is saving people hundreds of billions of dollars, and hopefully we'll get a refund on that. But they're cutting these fundings that the Democrats don't want cut, because that's their money makers. That's their political base. They're not going to get the votes from the American people. What they get the votes for is the far liberals, and the far liberals, even some of them have said enough. Like Bill Maher, he's done. He's like, you guys are crazy. He's like, don't sit there and tell me, when my eyes did see that Trump isn't this dictator that you make him out to be. I don't want to say super far left, but who's more critical of Trump than Maher?
Yeah, and like the economic argument, like we've tried money printing to death. The Democrats or the Labour in the UK and the Republicans and the Conservatives in the UK, they've all printed money. Well,
but the problem is what was justifiable. But that's not the problem. The problem is they were printing out not money. They're literally making money out of nothing. They had these what he called magic money. I mean, what people don't realize is that we had trillions of dollars that are unmarked, which means the code for where that money went was not put in there, which means it's untraceable. Trillions of dollars of money that was untraceable. You don't see a problem with this? And again, I don't give a shit what people think of Doge. If they believe it, don't believe it. I don't care. These are things that are happening. You're not going to sit there and tell me that the VA department is lying to me. The Social Security Administration is lying to me. That all these departments are lying, because they're all the ones saying, yes, this is what we're finding. Thank you, Doge, for coming in and making our department streamlined. And then you have the media out there lying to people, saying, oh, he's going to cut Social Security. He's going to cut VA. He's going to cut Medicaid. No, none of that. None of that. This has nothing to do with cutting of those things. It's streamlining it to make the process easy and get the waste out of these departments. Now, Attila the One says, loving Trump because you hate the left, which, by the way, this has nothing to do with liking or hating Trump. I'm going by policy and I'm going by facts. I'm not making about the man. I'm making about the president. If you can't understand that, you're not up to the level of having this discussion. You're just not. And then he says, Republican long game was attacking education as work just to cost them. So no, the Democrats. I'm sorry, but John, who was it that put DEI and transgender ideology into primary school, teaching them about anal sex? Was that the Republicans? Because I don't think it was. Yeah. That was the Democrats. So the Democrats lost their souls by grooming our children, by teaching them about inappropriate sexual fetishes in elementary school. And the Republicans said, no, we're not having this. They finally got rid of the Department of Education, which needed to be gone because it should never have existed. It should be at the state level, so the states can make their own educational, or tailor their own educational to a little bit. Where if you're if you live in Montana, what do you think is going to be more appropriate? Having more courses on farmland and agricultural, or
or technology. We're probably agricultural, right? And so we should have states. That's what the states were. It was for states' education. The states were originally supposed to be in charge of education. The federal level, the Department of Education, was some bloated bureaucracy that was able to infect our children with this gender ideology crap. That cost them their souls. So it wasn't the Republicans; it was the Democrats. How am I wrong on this?
Well, and there's another one here, like Amanda Breck. Can you imagine caring for women's sports so much that you elect a sleazy, power-hungry, scummy car salesman? Well, look, it doesn't really bode well for the decision-making process of the person who thinks that we should have
Bill Maher. Yeah, I'm sorry, Maher. Bill Maher. I didn't say Maher. It's Bill Maher. I know. Thank
biological males in combat sports.
Right.
That's absolutely nuts.
It's absolutely nuts. There's no way around that. And I stood my ground on that, and I said, look, you guys are idiots. I'm sorry, but you guys are idiots. You're allowing men who believe they're women to be in women's sports. I'm sorry, but that's not going to bode well overall in society or the world. World's not going to allow that. They're going to look at you and say you're fucking crazy.
Yeah, and again, both. I'm not wanting to speak for Steve, but Steve and I have had discussions about this at length. We're not against people living their lives the way they want to live their lives.
Of course, go for it, but don't affect other people's lives.
You just can't demand that other people acquiesce to you. It doesn't work like that.
And by the way, I'm trying to have Buck Angel on. Andrew Wilson from the Whatever podcast said he would debate him on non sequitur, or have me moderate. Hey, hang on one sec. Can you talk for a second?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and we've got a Department of Education in the UK, or our equivalent, and it's just created this one size doesn't quite fit bloody anyone approach. It's like different regions, different children, different age groups. They all need to be catered to differently.
One sec. Hillfounder Bill Maher. Bill Maher, sorry. Bill Maher. I don't know why I pronounced his name, but Bill Maher. Bill Maher, God damn it. Bill Maher said he's a liberal. He just had an interview with Charlie Kirk, and he's a lefty. He's a liberal, but he's the old school liberal. He denounces these radical liberals that are out there terrorizing people and wanting gender ideology and DEI. He's actually against all that stuff because he recognizes that it was the radical left that left him. And I probably would have been a lot like Bill Maher. Bill Maher. And I understand a lot of social liberal policies, and they're not all bad. But the radical left had hijacked the Democratic Party to such an extreme that even the most centrist people were somehow now far right, it seemed to the people. Well, this is something that Colin Wright pointed out.
This is the thing, like my positions, my actual ethical and moral positions haven't changed. And
mine either.
20 years ago, I would have been a Labour or a Democrat voter. The positions have moved around me, and as best as I can tell, I've remained fairly static. So to get criticism for being on the quote unquote right, it seems a little bit unfair, if I'm being honest.
Do you agree with this? I agree with what he says here. Bill Maher is quite literally the closest thing to having classical liberal media. Yeah, no, I agree with you. He is a classical liberal. He's a lot more along the lines of what was the guy's name that came on the show? What's his name? Carl Benjamin. He's probably more of a Carl Benjamin type, right? Sargon Avocad.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you agree that
have you had Carl Benjamin on this show?
I did.
What do you mean?
Yeah, not on this channel, but Carl Benjamin. Yeah, Carl Benjamin debated. I think he debated, if I'm not mistaken, Adam Kokesh on the Non Sequitur show. I think it was Adam. He was running for president. Adam Kokesh. He was a libertarian
some time ago.
Yeah, and in fact, on Wikipedia, my channel was cited on voluntarism at one time under Adam Kokesh in Wikipedia, but they've subsequently have changed that. But I am cited other places in Wikipedia. But yeah, I've had Sargon on. I've talked to him a few times. He's a pretty tolerable guy.
Well, no, I like him.
I don't have any issues. He was very cordial with me. I can't say anything. I can't fault the guy.
Well, the problem is that because he used to be a classical English liberal. He doesn't state that he is a classical English liberal now. He's more like of a traditionalist. But you know, he I think he got banned from the original Twitter because he had a bunch of like white supremacists that were having. He got sort of like invaded by the white supremacist branch because they thought he was going to be an ally. So he started tweeting. He started tweeting interracial gay porn at them.
Right. Yeah. You know, I have somebody on my Facebook going, "Well, Steve, you know, white supremacists supported Trump." I'm like, well, who else are they going to support? Kamala? I mean, that makes no sense. I mean, white supremacists probably want border control too. I don't see that as being, incompatible. But that doesn't mean you have to support white supremacists. It makes no sense. I openly despise white supremacists. Matter of fact, John, do you remember me saying there's only like a couple of types of people I'll never have on my channel? Do you remember what it was? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was Holocaust deniers, white supremacists, and basically challenger denials. But basically, I'm never going to have. I had a white supremacist once on not sequitur,
as in the Challenger disaster.
Yeah, challenger deniers. I just think that personally. But yeah. So if you remember, I had JFP Garapi on. If you remember him, he's a PhD biologist who's pretty heavy white supremacist. Yeah. Not a fan of the guy. But he was on the Non Sequitur show with a black supremacist person, and they ended up. I swear to God, it didn't go well because they both ended up agreeing. They both wanted an ethnostate and they wanted separation of the races. And I'm like, no, that's not what we support here. We don't. No, we don't condone this. We don't want this. You're supposed to be arguing with each other, not singing Kumbaya. Which is okay. It's okay that they agreed, right? I mean, but what they agreed upon. I'm not something I didn't agree with. That makes sense. And so it kind of like was like we're sitting there going, what the hell just happened? No, we don't want this on our channel. And so I just made a policy never to have a white supremacist on the channel ever again. So that's a true story. Can you imagine a white supremacist and a black supremacist arguing, debating at the very end, they end up agreeing. Yeah, we both want an ethnostate. No.
Yeah. No. Who was that guy?
Oh, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. I'm going to try to have more of these. Usually on the weekends, my roommate goes to work. I don't, so I am always here. And so I'm able to stream when it's quiet, which is going to be usually Friday nights, Saturday nights. And again, I'm only streaming now for two reasons. One, I'm feeling better, even though I still have to do blood work and I still have other things that newer problems. I want to talk about this stuff, and I miss it. So I am going to be talking about politics and other things. I haven't forgotten my philosophy, but if you really wanted to engage me, Twitter's the place to go. Follow me on Twitter. That's the place to follow me. And it's just at Steve McRae _. So just at my name and put an underscore. So go ahead.
So just in the chat, Amanda, I can guarantee you that won't be happening. They're the absolute scum of the earth. I don't believe in hell, but even I hope that there is a special place in hell.
What is this? I don't
understand. Give it a year, you'll be sharing the real truth about us with us about white supremacists.
Why would I ever want a white supremacist on my channel? I am adamantly against it. My roommate's black. I know there's like, you have black friends. I openly support a black congressional running for the Texas 30 district, Sheldon Daniels, who's running against Jasmine Crockett, who's going to be arrested for multiple things. I have a feeling for the fact that she's taken legal contributions. So I think she's already being investigated. Sheldon Daniels, nice guy. He's been very cordial to me on Twitter. Very nice to me. And that's what I like. And so I've been supporting him. I've been supporting a black woman who is she's running for what is this seat? A council seat in, I think, District 8 in Texas, which I'm not even, from Texas. I'm supporting her. So why the hell would I ever support anything about white supremacists? I mean, no, I want his answer on this. And he says, I have black friends. Well, I do have black friends. Amanda, do you? I do. Wait, John, let me handle this. Hang on one sec. Amanda, I do have black friends because I'm not a racist piece of shit like you are that's using their blackness as a weapon because you cannot articulate any kind of rational argumentation about the subject matter. So you have to pull this. Oh, you have black friends. Yes, we do. What about it? We have black friends. So what? You against having black friends? This is what I'm saying. This line of questioning, this line of argumentation no longer works because it makes you look racist, not the people that you're trying to demean.
It absolutely does. But also, why? If somebody seems to think that they can castigate me as a racist by saying, well, you don't have as many black friends as you do white
Right, you
friends.
can't win, right?
But then when I turn around and say, hang on a minute, I've got black friends, saying that I've got black friends is in and of itself a racist statement as far as they're concerned. Where the fuck is the logical consistency?
You can't have logical consistency because if you don't have black friends, because you're a white supremacist, you're a racist. If you do have black friends, I have black friends. And by the way, Bill Maher laughed just the other day, said he was leftist in his own words. So I don't know why people say that he's not a leftist. He literally is talking to, go watch the interview with Charlie Kirk. He literally said he's a leftist and he's a liberal, but not the liberal, the wacky liberal. He's a classical liberal, as people pointed out. And yeah, and by the way, I don't have to know anything about you. I just have to know what you're saying, because objectively what you're saying is racist. You're coming off as racist. I'm telling you that. I don't have to know anything about you. But when you sit there and tell people that, oh, because you have black friends, you're racist, and that you should be somehow eventually talking about white supremacist, you're racist. Because why would any rational person that, especially like myself, who's Jewish, right? So I'm very much against the Holocaust. Very much. I'm very much against anti-Semitism. Why would anybody promote white supremacist? I would like a rational explanation for that. Heat shield.
Yeah,
I got a mod here finally. Let me just read this real quick. I promise.
Sorry.
He says Jasmine Crockett needs to relax her angry forehead before she pops her wig glue, and it looks like a speeding broken convertible. Dude, she's losing her mind. You can tell she's scared. You can tell. And what's even worse is AG Letitia James. Oh my God, go listen to her last interview. It was bad. She knows she's cooked. And I've been saying, again, you guys haven't followed me on Twitter. You don't know what's been going on, because I've been talking about this stuff for a year or two, 2 years, and mostly within the last year, because I haven't put out anything on YouTube. So you may not know, but I've been discussing this stuff massively on Twitter. And I've been talking to the actual players. Like I said, people that are running for Congress, they're very nice to me. Sal from Sal Grover from Grover and Tickle. She's very nice to me. Amy Ham, who got fired as being a nurse for standing up for women. She's very nice to me. All these people are very nice to me. And so I get a lot more interactions on Twitter than I ever do here. And I told Sheldon, that Jasmine Crockett, would you rather debate her or have her go to jail?
If you speak,
because he's like, I want to debate her. And I'm like, okay, so if she goes to jail, you pretty much won the seat, which is the whole point, right? But I understand that you want to debate her because you want to make her look like an idiot. But if she goes to jail, take the win. Take the win.
We lost you there for a bit, Steve. We lost a chunk of your audio. I don't know if the chat did. I did.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think they got most of it. But anyways, Jasmine Crockett is looking at being indicted for contributions that were from Act Blue or Invisible, which are massively corrupt. These are terrorist. They're funding literally terrorist organizations. And there's another thing. Let me ask John here and Heat Shield. The logic on this. So they were pushing EV cars. They wanted the American people to be ecologically friendly. So all these people went out and bought Teslas, right? Whether you like the car or not, irrelevant. It's still an electric car. So they went out and bought it. So now the Jewish Americans that bought Teslas and cyber trucks, they're coming out and they're seeing their cars and they're seeing a swastika on their car. They don't have to know anything about what's going on. They don't know anything about Tesla. They don't know anything about Doge. They don't have to know anything about it. All they're coming out and they're seeing a swastika on their car. No, I want to finish.
Buying a Tesla can be completely apolitical.
Yeah, but if they're walking out and they're seeing a swastika on their car, what the hell are they supposed to think? And even if they do know about Doge, what the hell are they supposed to think? These are terrorist people. Anybody who can justify it, you're not, in my opinion, a good person. If you're causing harm to another person because of political differences and you're keying their car, you're the baddie here, and that is terrorism. And if you're firebombing firebombing Tesla dealerships, 20 years, no negotiation. You're a terrorist. It's not even debatable with me. So,
yeah.
And am I wrong on that, John?
No, you're not wrong at all. And obviously the swastika specifically on a vehicle that owned by. I mean, it doesn't even, the vehicle doesn't even have to be owned by the Jewish person.
That's
They could just walk past it on,
because again, it was happening. A Jewish person did have it happen.
but it's also the notion that, you know, apparently the environmental argument goes straight out the window because of a difference in political opinion, which in and of itself is mad.
Right.
But
Right.
you know what and like these are sort of like innocent people who have bought cars, spent money, they work, you know, just because somebody works to test a dealership and they're the ones that are getting shot at or having the buildings burnt down around them, doesn't mean that they endorse Trump's positions. And this is the thing that infuriates me with all of this. Like, even if I disagreed with Musk, you're never going to get me endorsing these people setting fire to private property, because it's not the person. The person who's bought the Tesla has nothing to do with Musk, other than like a very loose economic.
Yeah, and by the way, why would I call? I look. I don't. The fact that he accepted these by the way, people don't know Marianne Adelson is a Israeli. I think she has dual. I think he has dual citizenship, right? Doesn't he? I'm sorry, her. She's a she. I know that she has dual citizenship because I think she's Israeli and American, if I'm not mistaken. Right? I mean, she was married to what Sheldon Adelson, I think his name was. But be that as may, these are donations to a PAC fund. They weren't donated through things like Act Blue. Act Blue took up donations and they split them into multiple donations. These were donations that were not gone through a PAC like Act Blue that said, hey, look, we're going to use somebody else's name in order to make these donations. That's why she's in trouble. Jasmine Crockett is in trouble because her donations were put into other people's names, like Matt Van Swal, I think one of those names is. He's on Twitter. He doesn't follow me. He's responded to me before, but he doesn't follow me. But I've seen the receipts. His name was mentioned multiple times for donations. So somebody was putting in donations, about $750,000, I think, $100,000 over 20 contributions in his name and other people's names. That's fraud. You cannot do that. And they lowered their standard for fraud detection in order to have these donations go through. That's why Act Blue is being investigated. Their fraud standards were lowered, and they're being told, just accept it. We just look for reasons to accept it, right? We don't care if it's fraud. Look for reasons to accept it. And they lowered their standard for it. That's why Jasmine Crockett is in trouble, because they lowered their fraud detection standards and they took monies, seeing it from one name, who's, by the way, is a MAGA person who would not be donating to Jasmine Crockett in the first place. And this is not the only person they did this to. They went to these people's houses and they said, hey, can we ask you, did you donate to Jasmine Crockett? And they're like, no, why would we do that? So what happened was this, John. Act Blue was getting donations from other causes and then funneling it, money laundering it to Jasmine Crockett's campaign. That's what she's under investigation for. But the news media doesn't tell you this shit. They don't tell you the details. They don't show you that there's actual receipts to this. The news media covers up all this stuff. They'll be happy to target a Republican, happy to try to smear a Republican and Trump, but they do not tell the correct news on what's happening with one of their own. Jasmine Crockett is looking at campaign fraud. Act Blue is being investigated for campaign fraud. And I put out a whole thing on how these NGOs work on my Facebook and on my Twitter. And they got a lot of reading. And you know what they didn't get, John? Anybody explaining why it was wrong. I wonder why that is. And by the way, if you guys want to read these articles and these opinions I've been putting out there, let me know. I haven't put them on my blog, but I've considered that. But I've been writing opinion pieces. John, you've seen my opinion pieces on Facebook. Yep. Are they solid? And I'm not asking. I'm serious. I'm not asking as a friend. I want your honest opinion.
I've not sat down and done an academic critique of them, but they seem to be from. Yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with any of it.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. You're upset about Teslas being burnt. Yes, that's domestic terrorism. Why aren't you upset by it?
You seem to be trying really hard to pivot to.
Yeah, and this is called tu quoque fallacy. You guys know that I do philosophy, so I do understand these fallacies. This is called tu quoque, or whataboutism. Oh, well, you're upset about this, but what about this over here? Whatever that is over there is irrelevant to the discussion. It doesn't matter what that other thing is, right?
Not that I mind being called a Zionist.
I don't either. But whatever. But why are you not upset about Teslas being burned? Why are you not upset about people committing domestic violence against the one man that's trying to help us, or the two? Elon Musk is literally trying to save America from bankruptcy. And if you know anything about finances, go look at the numbers. Go run the numbers. Go through your AI. Go do what you got to do. Go run the numbers. This country probably would have been bankrupt in 50 years if they didn't fix this shit. Our spending was way too high, and that's just not my analysis. These are some major experts in world economics that are saying we don't have the ability to sustain this type of loss any longer. But what is it about these people that are going to the American citizen who owns a dealership, that has a business, that has people employed by them, and firebombing them to do what? It doesn't hurt Elon. If anything, it shows these people are radical. These people are dangerous, that the Democrats have lost fucking control. That if you're not MAGA at this point, I don't know what the hell to tell you, because I denounce this stuff, and I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to stand up and say, you people on the left, you're insane. You've tried to make men into women. You try to burn places down merely because you don't agree with them. You support groups like Antifa. You support censorship. You try to censor all the critics for how long? How many times did the media try to censor conservatives? They went out of their way to censor conservatives. They literally blocked them on Twitter. That's why Elon Musk bought Twitter, so they can get a conservative voice. So anyways, that's kind of in a nutshell. I'm not going to go too long because I do want this watched, John. But people can ask me questions as long as it's civil. But I will tell you, if you leave a comment on my video and it's not civil, it gets deleted. I'm not playing any longer. I don't care. This is not free speech on my platform. It's free speech that you can criticize the government without fear of redress, and you're free to talk about whatever you want on your platforms. But do not come at me sideways. I'm no longer tolerating it. I'm not interested. You're right to have your opinion. Opinions are fine, but if you come at me sideways, you're just going to get deleted. If you start talking about, about fascism and Hitler and white supremacy, you're going to get deleted, because I don't care. I don't care. Do it on your own channel, because that's not constructive criticism. That's not constructive criticism. I want to know the details. I want to know the facts, right? So again, you can have your own opinions like this. I don't care. You're welcome to it. So there you go. And then what we got here? Hiller says, to be honest, Steve, on all immigration stuff on Twitter, you sound like a loon. But don't worry if you get deported off stuff. Well, but here's the thing. I'm right though, Hiller. I'm right. I'm right on it. There's nothing. Go ahead and show me where I'm wrong. Because you're not going to deport American citizens. Okay, that's just insane. And to guide our country on the most extreme cases is not how you become a president and to lead our country. And the president is doing what he needs to do to protect our country now. And I support that. And whatever about the man doesn't matter. What he's doing right now is protecting American people, protecting people from being raped, murdered, and tortured by these criminals that are coming across the border. And damn it, I will support that to the best of my ability. So there you go. So anyways, I'm going to leave you guys with that. John, you got any parting words on this? Because we're going to be talking about these things more, but I just wanted to talk about the whole, Kilmar Abrego Garcia thing, because the media is lying to people on it. We can see they're lying to people on it. SCOTUS is not going to get this guy back. SCOTUS didn't rule him back. These people over there, these senators that went over there, and these Congress people went over there, they look like clowns. They look like incompetent clowns, because not one of them went to go see a Gold Star mother. Not one of them went to go see a family victim. Not one of them went over to another country to get Americans that are held hostage back. But they're putting all their eggs in one basket for a foreign national that is a confirmed MS-13 terrorist that can never come back to the States, that due to paperwork error just happened to be sent to the one country that he did have a stay from as a favor, even though the threat is no longer there. And this is what they want to hang their party on. I'm sorry, but you know what? America's not going to give a shit. I'm sorry, the mainstream America is not going to give a shit. This guy got enough due process that a minor paperwork error does not change reality, does not change the fact he was deportable, did not change the fact that he was MS-13, did not change the fact that Americans want these people out. And so you can bitch, you can moan, you can complain about due process, but you know what?
he got all the due process he's going to get. I think the Democrats have hung their head on, or hang their, the entire party on this one guy, and the midterms are just going to, they're going to get slaughtered. The midterms.
Well, and the other thing was like Garcia's wife. There's two. She's given two statements to police, alleging pretty serious
domestic violence. Yeah, she threw a laptop at her. He punched her. He bruised her. And by the way, this guy over here.
She's doing.
Go ahead.
But now she's doing a media tour, saying,
"I know, it's ridiculous, right?"
I'm like, okay, so were you lying then, or were you
lying? That's what I said. Right. She the line in her declaration of the violence, which, by the way, is she put down the truth in her declaration. But now that she's getting media attention, oh, he was such a great father. And by the way, Khalil was over here on a visa. And when you sign a visa to come over here, you cannot be involved in pro-Palestinian activities that promote Hamas or undermine the American system. That you cannot do that when you're over here. So yes, Rubio admitted to that because what he did was against his visa. So guess what happens to him? The Supreme Court said, "Yep, you're right. He's able to be deported." SCOTUS. People talk about the rule of law, but when SCOTUS says something that they don't like, what happened? And by the way, I don't think SCOTUS is perfect either. I think SCOTUS has issues, but that's beside the point. But SCOTUS did rule that he was deportable. Why? Because he violated the terms of his visa. There's something in free speech that is called time, place, and manner. Even you do not have absolute free speech to say whatever you want in any situation and not have consequences. That's what it is. You're free to say it, but there will be consequences. And this is what he found out. There's consequences for trying to support Palestinian activism against Jewish people. And this is why Harvard and the rest of them are losing funding. So yes, you can come over here. You can come over here in a visa. You have a free speech to be anti-Semitic. You have a free speech to try to rally terrorists against Americans, Jewish Americans, but you also have to suffer the consequences for it. He wasn't arrested. It wasn't a criminal thing, right? But he was deported because he violated the terms of his conditions. What is it about that you don't understand, Pacific Libertarian? Like pacifist libertarian? What is it that you don't understand by him violating the terms of his visa?
Well, the thing with Pacific Libertarian here, that they're obviously... and
by the way, Slam RM is right on the money. He was pro-Hamas. Yeah. You can't do that. You can't do that. So yes, he was deported legally, or he will be deported legally. I think he has obviously his appeal, but the Supreme Court already determined he is deportable. He violated the terms and conditions.
And nobody likes to see the state of Palestine and what it's in. But long, the middle, and the short of it is that Hamas, after being voted in by the Palestinians, invited the wrath of Israel by invading them by the hundreds.
Right. Hamas started this. They
murdering, indiscriminately killing, and then they ran away and hid behind their own children.
They hid, exactly. We know this. I knew you were going there. They hid behind their kids. I mean, these people are not good people here.
The idea of they're going door to door. They don't have to go door to door. It's costing them their own soldiers' lives to go door to door. Right. If they wanted to pancake Palestine, they could do it tomorrow.
I want to ask Pacific Libertarian a question. Can a permanent resident have their green card visa revoked? Yes or no? Can they revoke a permanent residency? Do you know the answer to this question, John?
Sorry, say that again, Steve.
Can somebody that has permanent residency by like a green card, right, or a visa, can it be revoked by the American government?
Yeah, of course it can.
Of course it can. So what? So what is the argument here? ICE arresting permanent residents for criticizing Zionist entity because they broke the conditions of their permanent residency. They broke the violations of holding the green card. There you go.
What's the point? I mean, what's the point in rendering a distinction between a naturalized citizen and somebody who has permanent residency by issuing them a green card? If there are different parameters, different rules which apply to those same people.
Right, and they violated it. So this is what I'm saying. You notice that he can't say that he didn't violate it because clearly he did. Like Islam RNF saying, right? You can't come to our country under false pretense, sign that you want to be an American citizen and be integrated with the rest of America, assimilate in the great melting pot, and then come over here and start spewing anti-Israel propaganda and promoting terrorism. You cannot do this. We'll not let you do this. America doesn't want this. Why would you want that? So why would you want somebody to come from another country, get a visa by false pretense in order to be anti-Semitic? Why would you want that, Pacific Libertarian? I don't even understand the mindset of these freaking people.
But it's mad. Like, let's put it like, do I want to be living next door to a person who, like, Hamas essentially have done the equivalent of, like, let's say that they lived over the street from me, and every time I start taking my kids to school, they start lobbing grenades at my house. And then they run back into their property and hide behind their children. A person who wants to apologize for that behavior. No, just fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, you know, it's funny because El Salvador used to be the crime capital of the area, you know, the Central America, you know, or, I mean, it was just murderous gangs. And then, you know, President Bukele came in. How do you pronounce the name? It's Bukele, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's pronounced Bukele. Yeah. So he came in and he said, I'm going to fix this. And he did. And he did. And then it was funny is some guy, I think it was in Arizona or New Mexico, some TDA gangbanger, Tren de Agua, or however you pronounce it, TDA. I just say TDA. But it's funny. One of the gang members was in his house, right? And he's like, I'm done. He's a judge. He's a Democratic judge. And a gang member was in his home, and he's like, nope, I'm done. And it's funny because I was like, well, I hope maybe he was just there to thank the judge. Maybe it was just, you know, how do we know he was actually a gang member? You know, there's no evidence he's a gang member. You know, where's the due process here? Judge, where's the due process? How do you know he's a gang member? How do you know he was TDA? Where's the evidence for this? It's again, these people are freaking insane. I am sorry, but if you don't believe this guy's a gang member, I don't trust your judgment on anything when it comes to politics. I just don't. You might be brilliant in something else, but in politics, I don't trust your judgment at all. I mean, come on. It's sanity. The level of Trump derangement syndrome is off the charts. It's off the charts. So anyway, so I'm going to wrap it up, John, because it's getting late.
Yeah, no,
but I want to thank you. I wanted to get this out there. So I want people to know why I am now officially MAGA. I do have on my Twitter why I support MAGA, but not that I joined us. I'm not taking the label. But after the last few weeks, I have no choice. I'm going to. And I want America to be great. And I want America to be strong. And I want the patriots to stand up and say enough. Democrats, you're full of shit. You're not doing this for any great cause. You don't give a shit about this guy's due process. All you're doing is using a prop, which is an MS-13 terrorist, to try to hobble Trump from doing what the American people voted for him to do. Simple as that. Simple as that. I'm just going to tell you guys the way it is. And by the way, do I sound like that I do not believe what I believe, John?
No,
Then I'm not doing this for any other reason but my core beliefs. So when people say that it's a grift, fuck you. I'm not getting a dime off this shit. You know, if people do donate, that's fine because, you know, every little bit helps. But that's not. If I wanted to make money, I would have gone against Trump. I could do far more by doing this bullshit. You know, oh, Trump is big bad orange man, and you know, this guy's a poor immigrant father that just was taken in the middle of the night and shipped away, and it could happen to you. Fuck off. I'm just not playing that bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm just. Well, I'm a grown ass fucking man, and I'm ex-military, and we don't think like that.
The other thing that's worth pointing out is just because you say that you're MAGA, it doesn't mean that you endorse absolutely every aspect of them. There's no two people on the planet that agree about everything.
No.
So how could you possibly agree with about everything with a political?
But I agree with the core. I agree with the core value, the core principles, right? And yeah. And Slammer, she's MAGA. Yeah, I've known. God, Slam, we go way back, and it's so funny. Slam RN is a Christian. She supported me when I did agree to argue with the Hugh Ross's organization with Dr. Fuzz Rana, who I have the utmost respect for. And Slam could tell you, I never insulted Christianity, right? I never insulted any of them for believing what they believe. I didn't say, look, Slam RN, you're a diehard Christian. You're MAGA. I can't have anything to do with you. No. I was like, maybe I don't agree with you. We don't have to agree. But I appreciate the fact that we were able to have cordial discussions and support each other. Whatever happened to that civil dialogue, John? Whatever happened to the reasonable discussions that people used to have? Because it's become so polarized, and I'm over it. I'm over it. And I will not be having contentious discussions on these matters. I don't want contentious discussions. I want to get the facts out. And if people want to listen, fine. If they don't, that's fine too.
Well, this is it's the flip side of the coin. When you're trying to have a reasonable discussion, and I know somebody in the chat's been like, "Oh, care so much about like women's sports." Well, firstly, I do care about women's sports.
Me too. My daughter was a catcher in sports. She was all state.
But also, when you try and have a reasonable discussion, when you try and sit down and go, yes, but the biological, and you're just laying out biological facts, something that even my dog knows the difference between man and woman, male and female. And the issue is that when we try and have those reasonable conversations, we instantly and immediately get called some kind of bigot or transphobe.
Yeah. I know.
To me,
those words mean nothing anymore. I don't care. Those words mean nothing. But if somebody wants to use those words, I'm just going to delete them and move on. I'm not going to even. I'm not even allow it to happen any longer. I've done enough. I've let people spew their nonsense. It's time to have actual adult conversations again. And if you don't want to be a part of that, then so be it. And real quick, he walked across the desert and he got arrested in 2019. He was found to be arrested with 2 other MS-13 gang members. They don't just hang around with anybody. These are well-known gang members. One of them is a high-ranking MS-13 gang members. You don't just hang around with MS-13 in the middle of the night. I'm sorry, that's not how this works. So yes, there's evidence.
He was also pulled over by a traffic cop in a vehicle.
2022.
Yeah, that was flagged.
Human trafficking.
The vehicle had been flagged as a potential human trafficking vehicle.
Yes.
And then when they pulled it over,
and you know who let him go?
There were other gang members in the car with him.
There was there was a terrorist. They didn't designate. They didn't say if he was from MS-13.
Oh, did they not? Right. No. Well,
yeah. So I can't make that claim, but they just say that one of the members in the car was on the terrorist watch list. He wasn't though, so they let him go.
Yeah,
but the other guy he was with was on the terrorist watch. Because people just hang out with other just normal people, just fathers of the year hanging out with terrorists and MS-13 in the middle of the night. I mean, come on, use your head here. And the fact is that they determined he was. 2 immigration courts said he was. The State Department said he was. El Salvador said he was. The evidence is overwhelming. There's nothing else to be said on that. I'm sorry, but there's just nothing else. But
he spends all of his free time with gang members. He's got the gang member tattoos. He was wearing essentially the gang member colors.
Yeah. Hey, James, real quick, James, I'll have a debate on monitor debate on this particular topic if you want. You can find me somebody. Because I've been following the SCOTUS rulings very carefully. I've been following the judges. I've been following the responses. I've been following these stuff very, very well. And I can tell you right now, James, that anybody who's arguing that this guy is not MS-13 has not looked at this record or just lives in the land of delusion. There's no other explanation for it. But the fact that SCOTUS has ruled one way and that the Rolling Stones media said Trump ignores SCOTUS ruling and fails to bring back, Maryland man kind of bullshit. That's a lie. It's an outright lie. It's not even exaggerating. It's media manipulation. And by the way, NPR going to lose their funding. They're not some neutral news organization any longer. 78 people on their board, 78 Democrats. It's biased as shit. Why should the American public pay for that? So, but anyways,
cool.
Right, the Kilmar Abrego Garcia topic, because people are like, well, he won't get undeported. It's not possible. That's the problem, Hillel. He cannot get undeported. He legally cannot be in the States. There's no path legally for him to ever set foot in the United States. Ever. There's no port. He cannot do it by federal law. So the most he can do is be facilitated to enter a port of entry, which the Department of Homeland Security has done. If he comes to the port of entry, he will be allowed into the port of entry. They facilitated that as per SCOTUS. But as soon as he enters the port, he'll be immediately arrested. And guess what? They'll remove that stay and he'll be sent right back to El Salvador. So what's the point? There's no reality when this guy can come back. He's persona non grata. He is banned from ever stepping foot in the United States. SCOTUS cannot override this. SCOTUS didn't try to override this. SCOTUS said to the judge, what the hell are you trying to do here by saying effectuate his return? You don't have the power to do this. We don't have the power to do this. That's an Article 2, not an Article 3 power. It's basic constitutional civics 101. I'm telling you right now, SCOTUS has no power to order the president to bring back a foreign national. They just don't have that power. So anyways, I mean, like I said, he's not coming back. So you have to go on the principle he's not returning. So you have to ask yourself, what the hell are these Democrats doing down there? They cannot get him back. There's no possible world he can get it back. No possible world. El Salvador's not going to release him. And if he did, he can't come back to the United States. He'd just be redeported. So what's the hell's the point? So it's either.
Do you know what the irony is? I think to the best of my knowledge, the only legal means that they could get him back into the country would be if his wife decided to press charges for domestic abuse, or if they did find that he had.
He's not one of our citizens. He's not under our jurisdiction.
Oh, no, of course. Yeah, so you couldn't even be extradited either.
Right.
No. Shit. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So.
Although you can extradite, you can extradite.
It's so funny. I got. By the way, I actually got a new one. I've always had this umbilical hernia, right? That's been bothering me, and it really does act up a lot, especially if you like pepperoni pizza. But what I had during the course of my testing, I also have now umbilical. No, I had an umbilical hernia. Now I have a hiatal hernia in the top part of the stomach. Right. So I found out. So I have 2 hernias now. So dude, hernias are not fun, man. I'm just telling you, they're not fun. But slam our insights.
Depends how you get them.
But anyways, that's my position. I just think it's hilarious that these Democrats gone down there. And so I'll leave you guys with this. The Democrats who went down there, assuming again that he's not returning, because again, that's a safe assumption. He's not going to be let out. I'm just going to tell you, he's not going to let out. If anyone wants to make a bet on that, I will bet you $100. He's not going to be let out.
Taxpayers' money, guys. Well done.
What's that?
I said it's a great use of taxpayers' money, guys. Well done.
Well, no, they're not paying for it. The House chair said, nope, we're not paying for this. This is not sanctioned. Do it on your own dime. Just 2 days ago. No, they're not paying for it. But anybody wants to bet me $100 that these guys come back empty-handed, I'll bet one person $100. John, you want to bet?
Yeah, he's not coming back. I wouldn't say that, but
yeah, but you're supposed to take the opposite side. That's the whole point. So the first person who wants to take me up on an offer, if I know them and I trust them, I'll bet them $100 on that. Because he's not coming back. So you have to think that these Democrats are either one of 2 things. One, they're completely delusional and naive to what actually is about this guy and think that for some reason he's actually innocent, which again is insane. Or 2, they're just being performative and they're just doing this to try to score brownie points against Trump, not realizing that this is not looking good to the mainstream America. This is not looking good to the voters. All they see is a U.S. senator shaking hands with an MS-13 terrorist. That's what they see. Whether you agree with it or not, does not matter. Whether you agree with MS-13 or not, does not matter. What matters is what the voters see. And the voters see Democrats having margaritas with terrorists. That's not a good look for the midterms. I'm sorry, but it's just not. They've literally destroying their own parties. And by the way, Democrats are down to 21% approval rating. Fact. And also, CNN, of all places, had in their last analysis of polling, had said that the majority of Americans want Trump to either have the amount of power he has or more power by 53% to 47%, which means that more people think that Trump has just enough power to get things done, or he needs more. I think he needs more power than the ones who think that he's a dictator. So when people are saying, "Oh, Trump's a dictator," you're telling the American people that basically they're wrong, which is you can do. But how do you think they're going to take that when they say they want Trump to have more power? Like me, I think Trump doesn't have enough power. I think that he needs more power to get rid of these rogue judges, because we are forming a judicial oligarchy, which is what Thomas Jefferson and Hamilton both warned about. They both said the greatest threat to democracy is judges going out of control from their own little fiefdoms to try to issue these nationwide injunctions, which should have never happened in the first place. The first nationwide injunction wasn't until 170 plus years after the signing of the Constitution. And it was in 1963. And they went along with it. But now Congress has to pass laws to say, no, you do not have the ability to make national policy. We need to shut this shit down. So anyways, if you guys like this kind of stuff, let me know. If you don't, well, I'm going to do it anyway. So, John, anything to leave us with, my friend?
No, I think you've covered all of it, Steve, to be honest.
Thank you.
I just think I would just like to point out that when people challenge you on this, they're challenging you as if your position is fringe. It's not.
It's mainstream.
It's mainstream.
This is what America has voted for. This is modern America. This is the mainstream electorate. This is the patriotic people in the heartland of America saying we do not want the leftist, communist, Marxist crap any longer, because that's all this was. All this stems from Marxism. Go look it up. This is not me being radical. This comes from critical legal studies, which comes from the Frankfurt School. This, you can go look this up in Britannica. This is not radical stuff. Critical race theory, critical theory, standpoint theory, feminist standpoint theory, all stems from Marxist ideologies. And basically to label your opponent things like Hitler and to basically get the opponent to have these radicalized terms against them rather than address the postmodernistic rewording of things and redefining of things, like what's a woman? Well, it's no longer an adult human female. It's whatever you believe it to be. That's postmodernism. That's Marxism, because that's how they promote these mind viruses. So anyways, I got to go. My voice is getting shot, but I did what all I can do for tonight. If you guys want to talk about a specific instance, about a case, I'm familiar with most of them. The Venezuela case, the Department of Education, all that kind of stuff. Let me know what you want to have discussions on. But again, I'm just letting you guys know we view this video from when this timestamp. I am not dealing with bullshit. I'm not dealing with Trump is bad man. I'm not dealing with you're a fascist, Hitler, whatever. I don't care. Those comments, they don't have any place in civilized society. I'm not interested. I'm just not. And so say what you got to say, but do it on your own channel. Let's have adult conversations and let's talk about what the facts are. And let's talk about what's best for the country. Because that's where my position is. It's not pro-Trump. It's pro-America. And John, you have pro-England, I'm sure too. And so you, I'm sure, are very, very patriotic about your country as well as you should be.
It's it is a shame that we're going through a bit of an upheaval. We're having to deal with Starmer right now.
By the way, I what's his little thing with his gay buddy? Not that I care about him being gay, but there's some major shit about that going on.
No, Keir Starmer's straight. I think he
was caught making out with that one guy on surveillance.
What?
Carl Starmer just recently was caught. There's a surveillance
video. Keir Starmer?
Yes. Where the hell have you been? This is like big news.
No, that can't be right.
I am not making this up. CCTV. Right here. Unverified claims of Carl Starmer leak sparks controversy because I guess he was kissing some Israeli billionaire. Yeah, look into it. You're obviously know way more of this. This has happened just recently. This is literally in the last couple of days.
I had not heard that at all. If it's not being broadcast by the mainstream, if it's
rumors swirl about Carl Starmer, and I don't know the guy who was kissing.
I mean, to be honest, gay straight is sort of relevant, but
Lord Alley, he was spent the night at his Lord Alley's place, and he denied anything, and then they found CCTV footage of him kissing Lord Alley on the doorstep, supposedly. Now, again, I haven't vetted this. I've not looked into that much, so I'm not saying that that's the case. But it's the fact that you haven't even been aware of it, and it's been going in the news cycle here for the last day or two. You might want to look into it.
Yeah, no, I will do. I mean, ultimately, if it's true, the fact that it's a scandalous because obviously he's married with kids and it's cheating,
right? And that's what the scandal is. But I'll give you Lord Ali is his name. I guess he's some Israeli or something billionaire or something like that.
Yeah, and with AI and stuff these days, and how images can be generated.
This doesn't look like AI. There's much more to it than this. This is a very big scandal that's happening right now, and people are talking about it big time on Twitter.
But but
it may not be real. I mean, again, I'm not saying it's real or not, but it may not even be right. Let's hypothetically say it's bullshit, but it is being talked about. So that's what I'm just saying. You might want to look into it because I haven't looked into it yet.
The issue, I mean, to be honest, it'd be sensational if true, but sort of
right.
It doesn't really.
Right now, I'm putting it up there with the whole Michelle Obama being trans thing. Okay, so I'm not taking any. I'm not believing it, but it's one of those cool to think about. It's just interesting.
It's funny, but unlikely to be true or serious.
Yeah.
No, my issue in the UK politically is the 2-tier system we've got with regards to the judiciary. They've gone fucking mad.
Well, I thought they're rolling the 2-tier system back. I thought they realized this is not a good idea.
Well, they're claiming to, but I don't think they actually. We had a woman who had she spent 7 hours in a police cell the other day because somebody had reported her for stealing tablets, like like an iPads or whatever, and she'd confiscated them from her own children because they weren't doing their homework.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you guys have lost your mind over there. No offense, but your government has becoming corrupt, like our government has become corrupt.
But, just 7 hours in a police cell.
That's insanity.
For confiscating your children's.
And what about the woman that was praying outside an abortion clinic?
Yeah, silently praying in her head outside.
Right, and so people talk about dictatorship. You guys are. This not my audience because they're pretty smart, but there are other people that are concerned about this. Garcia terrorist due process. But what about the poor woman that was praying outside of an abortion thing and she gets arrested? And people's like, Steve, well, are you turning Christian now? No. You guys may not know this, but I officially joined the Satanic Temple. I'm a card-carrying member of the Satanic Temple with my name on it. Steve McRae, a holy pope of agnosticism, on my card. But because I'm very pro separation of church and state. And so
also just because it annoys you that somebody praying outside an abortion clinic was arrested also doesn't mean that you're pro-abortion. Yeah,
exactly. I'm actually against
or anti-abortion.
Partial abortion. I think it's barbaric.
Yeah, well, my position is that once you get to the point of viability, then doing the abortion, because you could do.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think that no side is going to come to terms with each other. So you really have to put where the viability is and where the consciousness starts developing. I think after that point, then we shouldn't have abortions. But again, it's a very contentious discussion.
Yeah, so you essentially take the personhood position. Once.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean, but I think that's the most reasonable. Again, I'm looking at all this like pragmatically, because I tend to go to pragmatism. Both sides in the abortion debate are not going to be satisfied, and so you have to come up with a compromise. It's kind of like Israel and Palestine. You need a compromise. You have to. There's no way you're going to get around it. And yes, I am MAGA now. Godspeed. So anyways, you can watch the video and leave comments. But again, I just want to reiterate, I'm not trying to be a dick about this, but do not come after me sideways. I'm not interested any longer. I'm coming at this from a very pragmatic, very military, very pro-America, patriot point of view, which I've been through my entire life. My entire life, I have not changed in this. So I've just basically befuddled that people are like trying to condemn me for being pro-America. It's not about Trump. It's about pro-America. So anyways, thanks, John. I'm going to let you know. I'm going to end this. And
no worries. I'm going to drop off, Steve. And I'll catch you,
my friend. I do appreciate it. Get some sleep, okay? And thank you for all for watching. Thank you, James. I'll be in touch with you if you're interested. Thank you, Heat Shield, for dropping by. And thank you, Slam RN. Always a pleasure to see you as well. I look forward to your comments. Like, subscribe, don't subscribe. I don't care one way or another. I just don't. My primary consideration right now is to my country as somebody who is very proudly an American, somebody who has served 6 years, somebody who was in Desert Storm, Desert Shield with 3 deployments overseas. I have a right to defend my country the way I see fit, and people have a right to criticize that all they want, but do so respectfully. Do it as an adult. I'm just not interested in the diatribe. So there you go. I'm going to go take my medication, and before I go to bed, because I have to take medication every night now. And also, people I know, I like my edibles. I ain't going to front. They do help a lot. I've been going through a lot of stuff that the edibles help, and so screw it. I'm not going to apologize for that, people. I'm at least feeling better. We're at a point where I can stream more often now, hopefully, and we'll see if we can. So if you got to talk about something, do it that way. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, James. Always a pleasure to see you, my friend. And again, very proud of what you've accomplished. I really mean that. I really, really am. I would have wished the Now Sequitur show would have done what you were doing, but unfortunately wasn't to be the case. But it's all in the end worked out okay, because I like where I'm at, and it probably saved my life, to be honest with you. Had I not had the things happen to me that they did, I know that I probably wouldn't be alive today. And I mean that very, very seriously. My brother died from what I had. Let's be honest. He died when he was 50. I'm now 54. had I not taken care of this stuff for, whatever I needed to get care of, I just don't think I would have been around much longer. It was just, so I like to look at it that way. So anyways, I'm out, guys. Thank you for watching. Sorry if this was a little bit much, but I put my views out there. That's what I've always done. That's always what I'm going to be doing. And I'm going to support you, man. And I will continue to support you, James. And one day I would love to actually meet you in real person. And if you have a debate that doesn't have Matt Dillahunty, then I'll probably go. Because that guy is a clown, man. Just an absolute clown. It's so funny because I actually get along with Andrew Wilson. Who would have thunk? We don't agree on a lot of things. But you know what? Andrew was nicer to me than Matt Dillahunty ever was. So with that, I'm going to leave you guys adieu and thank you guys for watching. And we'll catch you later. And good night.